Okay, so we have that wonderful ladies saying us we are being recorded. Okay, so yeah, I had the previous 1 day session recording is so inside the drive lah. So basically everything is there. So I'm sharing with you all now. You can actually go in and if you want to download, you download. If you have any problem accessing the file, you can let me know lah. Okay, most of it is there already. All right. Yeah. So today we'll be basically sharing about how to basically write a more specific FRGS grant lah. Okay. Overall, the workshop outline. Upon completion of this workshop, the participant should be able to understand the basics of writing a grant in the first place. Its assessment, how do you do budgeting, and as well as selection of team members. Okay, and then they will be. I mean, throughout the training, I will be giving you all the do's and don'ts in writing for grants and fund. A little bit of disclaimer here is that basically actually most of the information here, apart from some of the examples that I'm going to use based on the application that we had here in UOW, there are certain things, certain information that I've taken from other resources. And of course, it will be cited at the end of the slide. I'll give you all some information where were they taken and all that. Okay. So without further ado, we can start lah. Okay. So what is a grant actually? If for those of you all who haven't heard about grant, why is the organization, why is the management keep telling research grants and all that? Basically, in terms of definitions, right? Grants are non-repayable funds or product disbursed by one party lah. Normally it is the grant makers lah. For example, in this case now, FRGS is actually the provider is from the Ministry of Higher Education. So every year, the Ministry of Higher Education will actually give an announcement or a call for a proposal, especially for FRGS. And then the earlier one, they will release PRGS. PRGS, they'll just give you limited time for you to apply. And then subsequent, they'll have FRGS. And then after that, they will open up TRGS and so on and so forth. So the bigger the shilling, the later they will open up for us. And it has its own requirement. But for today, I'm just going to narrow the grant for just FRGS. Okay. So what is FRGS? Basically, the key word here, the first letter for F is basically fundamental. So it's a fundamental research grant scheme, okay, abbreviated as FRGS. So in terms of fundamental, right, in terms of R&D, basically, there is the normally the fundamental research and then the applied research. So in terms of fundamental, right, what are the key points that normally funders or grant providers are looking is basically, can the researcher provide new principles or not, new properties or not, new theory, new idea, new methodology, new equation, mathematical equation, or new algorithm? Everything has a new thing there, okay? And then as compared to the applied side, you have this, what kinds of products, what more tangible kind of outcome from that particular grant. So these are applied based grant. Our focus here is going to be on basic research, which is the fundamental. And then, of course, if you later on, I will show you all if we are talking about what are the what should I say, like what do you call this output that is necessary for a fundamental. We will have that in our what do you call it training later on. Also, just to give you all some additional information about fundamental research, that it should be basic lah, okay, or maybe pure. It should be something that where you expand the existing scientific knowledge. It can be theoretical and in some way exploratory in nature, but of course the essence of fundamental has to be there. And it shouldn't have like a direct or immediate commercial benefit, more about curiosity driven, and this can actually set basically the output of this fundamental can actually be used for applied research as well. From that onwards, you can go into commercialization and so on. This fundamental research basically answers the what and the how kind of questions that you will ask lah. And basically whatever output that you're going to create from this has to be, maybe has a structure to it. Maybe this the has a model to it. Maybe this particular fundamental research that you're doing can actually be created or be streamlined into a policy, for example. Okay, so these are all the things that where KPT is actually looking for lah, in terms of our proposal. And as compared to applied, basically, of course, it is just about like, you solve particular problem. You can actually provide some innovative solution. It should be practical, descriptive in nature lah. Okay, and normally it is subsequent that is from the fundamental. That means from the fundamental, you will at the end come up with an applied based research lah. Okay, so I know, I mean, most of us are doing research. I mean, we have actually done research in our PhD and our master level, so we kind of grasp the concept lah, of what is applied and also fundamental. Okay, yeah, so just now we want to know what is the problem. Actually, this is a predicament lah, or the problem that some of the staff are actually facing. First, in order for you to support your research, you need funding. And in order for you to get the funding, you need to write a proposal. And your proposal has to be convincing for the grant panels or examiners. And then once the project is awarded, you need to manage and deliver as promised. And then after that, successfully delivering a project builds a good track record. And then, of course, good track record gives you more opportunity. You will hear that if you attend any seminars on funding and all that, they will tell you that the key aspect for you to be getting the next grant is based on what work you have done in your previous grants and all that. Okay, but the problem here is that the gap between having a good track record as compared to starting a new research. So most of our problem here is we have new researchers who are actually first time applicants of FRGS grant. So then here is where I will advise you all the do's and the don't. How do you make sure that the panels or the examiners, when they are checking your FRGS proposal, even though they can see that, yeah, this lecturer has no experience in leading a project or actually has experience in getting fund, at least in the institution level also, he or she has no internal grants and all that. So how do you make sure that your proposal is convinced? You yourself, like the panel see you as a qualified leader for that particular project before they recommend you for the proposal. Okay, so this is the things that we're going to see here. Okay. Of course, then that's the next question. You ask yourself also why you apply for grant. Definitely, we look at it in the case of internal and external aspect. What benefit does it bring to you as a lecturer in a private university? And then what benefit does it give for our university? Okay, definitely all these things, once you obtain your grant, it has a lot of benefit for the Malaysian Research Assessment, which is the MyRA or Setara, or in fact, we are aspiring to become a full-fledged university. So this is where the whole mission is for UOW Malaysia KDU to be a full university. Okay. Next thing is basically you want to see whether some of you who are maybe in some of the lecturers here, so maybe in the master level, you want to make sure that you apply for a grant. Since you are a lecturer now, you apply for a grant, and this grant can actually fund or help you for your PhD, not directly, but maybe indirectly in a way where it helps you to collect certain data that can help you to continue to your PhD after the completion of this particular project to see to the next level. Definitely human capital development. We are talking about here as in definitely all the grants you have the KPIs. One of the KPI or one of the output is basically to have GRA, graduate research assistant, which translate to postgraduate students. So you can actually have a master student, you can actually have a PhD student, and from there onwards, build your research reputation, your portfolio as a principal investigator or a main supervisor of a project. Okay. And then next is definitely from there onwards, you want to look into research project, research products, from fundamental going to applied, having some product of your own innovation, your own pattern and all these kinds of things, which leads to maybe from that onwards, establishing your own research cluster in maybe in UOW by itself. And of course, we're looking at commercialization, we're looking at patents, and from that onwards, by having grant, you can also buy advanced machines like some of the staff are actually saying that we don't have the equipments here. Most of the time, we need to outsource, or we need to go to other institution and pay rent to use their equipments lah. Okay, so one of the way for you to actually buy research equipments or machines is through grants. Okay, and then finally is basically, definitely most projects leads to publications, like the research output of the particular project is one apart from research student is also publication, be it Web of Science, Corpus, some, high impact journals and all these kinds of things. And from here onwards, networking. You build network with whoever you have in your team. From there onwards, you build your own network. All right. But overall, right here, right, you can basically notice that from 1 to 8, right, it is actually an output. I mean, this is just not limited to from 1 to 9, and you'll see that by just having a grant, right? And I have a few success story from our own lecturer here that once they have a grant, right, you can see their career advance. They get promoted. They are not the same when they are before they apply the grant. When they have grant, a lot of things came to them, and all these are contribution that you're going to give externally, and also some part of it will be internally. You build your research portfolio. As a lecturer, when people go and see our website, when they see what's the content, who are our lecturers, you have all this information inside your researcher profile there, which you can actually flaunt. Like you can say, I have all this and all that. People will come to you. You'll get a lot of invitation to be as part of the co-researcher for certain other projects, be it from public and private. These are all testaments, and these are all real things that is happening with our lecturers currently. Once they actually pick up these kinds of specialization, when they actually got the grants, okay. Yeah, so basically, like I said, we opened the grants or basically the Ministry of Higher Education actually starts doing the call last year, December, and the closing date is on the 16th of March. But in between that, we have a lot of process where it'll be, ding dong lah. Basically, the lecturer or the lecturer writes the proposal, it gets checked, and then the internal examiner check, and then send it back to them, do some revision, and then go back to the internal examiner for them to do the checking. And finally, the internal examiner will recommend or not recommend or highly recommend your project. So if it's a highly recommendation, what will happen is that when it's in PGRC, definitely if it's highly recommended, we wouldn't want to reject it in-house, right? So, and if it's recommended also, we will do the same thing. But if it's not recommended, we have a problem here where PGRC needs to comply because all these things are being done in the MyGrants system, and it is actually transparent. So when the MOHI sees the process of what an institution actually did in their grant application or grant procedure, they will see, are we following their guidelines or not? Okay. Yep. So basically, if you look at FRGS, and I have added PRGS as well. If you look at FRGS, the duration is from 2 years up to 3 years lah. Okay. And the max ceiling, they call it, or the max amount that you can apply is up to 250,000 for FRGS. And for PRGS, so PRGS also they have this 1.0, 2.0 PRGS. Which the minimum is up to 500,000, and then it goes according to the what do you call that? The whether it's PRGS 1.0 or 2.0 and so on. I kept saying PGRC. Okay, so PRGS. All right. All right. So now this is I purposely bring this falsafa in here because those are the things that I am highlighting is the thing. These are the key words, right? That you have to actually have in your proposal also. The grants are actually quite straightforward. There's no thinking process involved. Why I'm saying thinking process involved, at least at the ministry level, is because everything is just given in a marking rubric. I will share with you all the marking rubric at the KPT level, how they actually categorize certain grant in recommendation, highly recommendation, and reject also. And these are all the key points that you need to bring inside your grant. So for example, if you look at FRGS, even the guideline is in bahasa lah. So falsafah skim grant penyelidikan fundamental adalah untuk menggalakkan penyelidikan asas fundamental agar dapat menjana ilmu baru beracuan, not beracuan, beracuan Malaysia yang mampu menyumbang terhadap peningkatan tahap intellectual, increase of intellectual, penciptaan teknologi baru. So even though they say this is tangible, that means there's something that you want to create, new technology, but in the sense of fundamental. And penyuburan budaya yang dynamic dan selaras dengan aspirasi negara. This green thing, you may ask the question, so what is the country's aspiration? Then they have the answer there. So basically the domains that you're going to choose, these are all what the country, Malaysian, actually aspires to go into. Okay, so it's quite streamlined for you all. You are actually given a proper guidance for you to go into to see that, okay, if they are saying intellectual, what do they mean? If they mean technology baru, what do they mean? And so on. It's properly defined for us. All right. So the red color thing is the main key point here. So basically, if you look at the fundamental research grant schemes keyword, let me read here lah. Okay. Penyelidikan fundamental merupakan penyelidikan asas yang boleh menghasilkan teori. Okay, keyword, konsep dan idea baru beracuan Malaysia demi perkembangan ilmu. Tujuan also, you see, they bring back the same keywords. Penyelidikan ini bertujuan untuk melonjak penjanaan teori, konsep, idea baru beracuan Malaysia yang menjadi pemangkin kepada penemuan baru yang menerobos sempadan ilmu dan penciptaan inovatif. Keywords are all here. Later, I'll just give you all some other keywords. Why I'm saying this is keyword is, these are the keywords that you will starting in your title also, right? You're going to define already. You're going to tell them that by the panel, external panel from Ministry of Higher Education, when they read your title, they can know, okay, this researcher is actually writing something regarding fundamental. If they see your title, okay, this title doesn't seem like fundamental, more applied, but let us go through and see the proposal, whether it's actually written in the fundamental or overall is it applied, before they can easily reject. Okay. The ministry will go in rampage in rejecting rather than accepting because they're going to have a lot of proposal. So they want to see flaw. They want to see the flaw from an institution. They want to see flaw from the researchers so that they can have something to write in their remark. Kenapa tak dapat grant because this lah. So definitely when PGRC received the result from the ministry, we will actually give to the researchers and we will tell them why your grant is not accepted because of all those points lah. In fact, some of the researchers last year applied. If you go back to your application, you see there's a comment section where it's been written by the examiners and telling you all why some of your grants were not successful. You can read up on that, improve and resend in the following year. Okay. So what's the reason I'm showing this particular slide is because definitely it's quite blur. I'm sorry for that. I try finding the clearer one, but I cannot get. So sorry for the blur. Because if you see here, this is where Malaysian R&D landscape is all about. And most of the ministry are actually looking at these particular stages of research. For example, if you look at the one that has been highlighted here, this is where it is at. Basically, in the case of pre-R&D, R&D, pre-commercialization and commercialization, this is where they have segregated their, what you can say, their phases of a research project. So basically they have certain ministry that is actually providing pre-R&D funds, or at least in UOW level we are actually giving your internal grant. So this internal grant serves like your seed fund for you all to start applying for this pembangunan idea, which is external. So if you look at pembangunan ilmu under R&D here, it always goes on basics lah. So this TRL is where mostly capture, it is basically adapted from NESA, the total readiness of the level. So you have until 1 to 9. If you go to mostly, they will give you what defines as TRL 0, what defines as TRL 1 to 3 and all that. And this is actually structured. They give grants, the ministries actually gives grant according to all these TRL. So if you see here, the fundamental, the large, and the FRGS, all three are basic or fundamental grants. Okay, and then you can see that from here onwards, what they want you to go into the pre-commercialization stage, which is where they are giving you all FRGS, and the FRGS level also is there. And then you see these are all the other grants. So not necessarily Ministry of Higher Education. You have Miss MOSTI also is involved. So MOSTI also you have, if you go to MOSTI website, most of their grants is on SMEs, and where academic and SMEs can work together, where academic basically channel the fundamental idea and collaborate with SMEs or maybe some MNC to actually develop this project, into a pre-commercialization stage before going to commercialization stage. So you see here PPRN. So PPRN is another grant from Ministry of Higher Education also. But this grant is on industry. Basically, they want you to solve the problem of the industry. The point here is basically the solution should be, or the research should be from 6 months to a year. And then max, they have some amount of years according to the weightage of the project. It can be as simple as how do you make sure that the packet or the packaging of a nasi lemak would be able to, make sure that the nasi lemak inside doesn't spoil if it's, for the whole day. Or maybe how do you make sure that these people can actually sell their nasi lemak in maybe, 7-Eleven and so on, because it can be so long. These kinds of idea where they actually approach academics to see whether how can they do in terms of packaging and so on and so forth. Okay, so you look at this, right? It is actually quite structured from pembangunan ilmu to pembangunan technology to pembangunan perniagaan, and all these, right, is actually depending on lecturers also in institution of higher learning. So if you look at your role as a lecturer, right, is not only looking at basic teaching students and all that. When you go into research, right, this itself is a different landscape already. That there's a start until the end, and that's the reason why if you look at our MQR or the framework, new framework, where they always incorporate the entrepreneurship thing inside there. So it was there previously, but wasn't emphasized that much. But nowadays, you see entrepreneurial thoughts, entrepreneurship is actually brought in subjects also. Okay. The reason is because they want to instill these kinds of thought into students and all that. Apart from that, to lecturers also. So how lecturers learn is through applying these kinds of grant. And then after you get FRGS, what do you do if you ask? You go to the next grant, which is PRGS. And then after PRGS, what do? You go to TRGS also, another one grant. So until it's been commercialized, patent commercialized and all that. So when we talk about commercialization, right, we don't only focus on the science side. We also focus on the social science side in terms of what can you sell from the product that you develop from the fundamental research. Okay, so these are something that you want to look at in terms of Malaysian research landscape. Okay, so the most important things before I even go to the proposal is actually talking about like I said, right, aspirasi negara. What is aspirasi negara is that when you those apply the grant, right, you can see there is research domain. After that, you go to that what do you call this? The research clusters. Then you will go to 1010 my STIE. Then you'll go to shared prosperity vision. After that, SDG. So these are all the things, right, that Malaysia is involved. These are the last time they call it as a key economy area for Malaysia. You will start off by choosing your clusters. For example, you have the 7 research clusters here. Uh, anyhow also you try to fit it in lah, because I know when I speak to researchers, right, applying grant, they'll say that my research is nowhere inside here also, so I need to maybe tembak 1 or 2 lah. But actually you'll see that 1 or 2 points of your research will actually fit in somewhere around here one. So all you need to do is to go to the link that I've also given you all to read more details about this, because these are the main domain. It has its own subdomains also, at least for the number 8, 9, and 10, and so on lah. Okay. So if you look at here in your MyGrant, right, this will be apparent lah. So those who are in science and technology, basically maybe you want to choose technology engineering. Those social science can easily choose social science and all that lah. Then it gets challenging. It gets challenging in a way where you need to look at research clusters also. So these are actually the key priority area for Malaysia lah. Malaysia looks into this in terms of their research. Security dan keselamatan makanan, food safety and security, infrastructure asas, basic infrastructure, perubahan, climate change and global warming and all these kinds of things comes under that lah. Health, education, masyarakat madani cerdik ilmu, that means knowledgeable civil society, national security in terms of defense. If you have anything in terms of defense, you can actually choose this. Keselamatan, kesejahteraan sosial dan ekonomi, social and economic well-being, and finally technology, terkehadapan dan perbuatan termaju, frontiers, technology and advanced manufacturing. So those like in industrial 4.0, all those particular things, you can choose the number 8 lah. All these will go under that also. But if you really want to be specific, then you can choose all the other things above. Also, some researchers will say, so where is it my one? Like for example, I have a meeting with a lecturer from mass communication telling me, okay, I'm doing on digital marketing, I'm doing on education. There's one also I'm doing on, fake news. Where do I go here? So there will be something fitting, like keselamatan negara also depend on that. How the fake news affect keselamatan negara, how people go into riots, in these kinds of things when they hear fake news and all that. So maybe you can choose this also. And then whenever you choose this is another one, do's lah, okay? These are the things that you're going to carry forward in your proposal, in your writing also. Whenever you talk about what is the output that you're going to derive from your research, at the end of the day, this particular output can help save keselamatan negara. So you bring this key point all over your research so that when the panel read through your proposal, they know that, okay, this researcher has chosen all these research clusters and SDGs and all that, which is aspirasi negara, and he or she knows where to tackle. That means the principal investigator or the research applicant is actually telling us that my research at the end of the day, right, will try to tackle all these concerns that the negara is actually having. So I will go into this particular part lah. So these are the things that you need to do also. After you go to research cluster, you need to select another one called 1010 My STIE. Malaysia, it is from MOSTI. This is one thing from MOSTI. And you want to read about this, the link I provided you all, there is a, what do you call that? I should say kind of like a guideline, like our policy and all that. Where do you see, what is the subcategory of all this? So all these kinds of things, they have their own details, like SDG, right? Like say you go to SDG number 2. Then you have all the subcategory under SDG also. So which point is actually, maybe hitting the point lah. This is bingo. This is the part of research that I'm going to do for my proposal. Okay. So you need to choose lah, all this. Then next comes to another one. Okay. The previously was wawasan 2020. Sekarang until 2030. is the something we call as the shared prosperity vision. So our timeline is 2030 that all these KEGA lah, okay, Wawasan Kemakmuran Bersama 2030. This is also given to you all in the link. You can actually download that and read. Where is this? You know, like for example, you see KEGA 15, Malaysian Truly Asia. Some of you all may be singing in your mind lah, okay? But Malaysia Truly Asia basically goes on tourism. You know, when you talk about tourism, then that's where you go KEGA 15 lah. And under KEGA 15, there is also a lot of subcategory there. These are the things that you actually need to read when you choose this particular thing. All right. After that, you'll have definitely the sustainable development goal. And this one, it was previously added, societal harmony and happiness. I'm not sure it's added in SDG, but I know KPT has this point where, you know, these are the things that maybe you want to also include lah, in your research also. Again, this manual is also inside the link for you to read lah. All right. So all these, right, is the stages when you choose, you need to choose the right fit for your research. Okay. So whenever you choose all these are the things that you're going to tackle. You're going to try to solve. And you're going to tell to the panel that if I've done this research, if I'm doing this research, the next thing or the output of the research will be able to solve part of the concern or part of the problem that is there in apa yang negara aspire to become. You know, so hit all the dots at this particular point and try to solve it with your research. Okay, so you will in a way, right, you will start it off with you start doing your research, then only look into this. But my advice is maybe look into this and try to revise your proposal to now hit all the points here. Okay, so we go the other way around. Okay, all right. Now we go in terms of the requirement. Okay, the new circular at least not so new 2021 they change a lot. 2022 they just bring forward one or two few new guidelines lah. Okay, grant ini terbuka kepada kakitangan akademik in all levels lah, profesor madya, pensyarah kanan and pensyarah yang mempunyai sekurang-kurangnya ijazah sarjana di institusi seperti di lampiran A. So they have narrowed down whoever studied in the one in lampiran A, which is in the FRGS 2022 guideline, then you are eligible to apply for this. So and don't worry lah, most of the Malaysian institutions are inside that. Even UOW Malaysia, UOW Malaysia Penang, UOW Malaysia University College, we are all inside there also. So not to say you're a lecturer that you study there. Maybe some of you used to study there, now become a lecturer. Yes, you are entitled to apply for this. So check out Lampiran A and see whether are you all from there or not. Okay. But that being said, if you are from foreign campus and all that, there's no stopping you to apply and so on. Okay. Another one part you see here is that one of the co-researcher must be Malaysian with the same expertise as the PI and from the same institution. It is mandatory because whenever you apply for grant, of course your network may be big. You want to bring in a lot of people in, but it is mandatory that you add in a co-researcher inside your proposal that is Malaysian and hopefully tetap. So must be tetap definitely. But the key point is with the same expertise as the PI. So we don't go really like sub-specialization specific. We go in terms of if you're a mechanical, then the lecturer mechanical should be okay. If you are from electrical, the lecturer electrical also should be okay. We don't go really so stringent on this. But the thing is has to be from the same institution. When they talk about same institution, remember one thing, they still view UOW Malaysia, KDU, Penang University College, and UOW Malaysia, KDU University College as a separate institution. Because when you select institution, we are not one. So when you say you have a lecturer from UOW Malaysia University College, they still view that as external entity. So if Penang, please choose Penang. If from UG, please choose UG. The reason being is that once you're no more working with us, then they are the person that will actually take over your grant. So because money is being disbursed to institutional base, it's not to one. So like bursary, UOW Penang gets the money if our researcher gets the grant. UG is also the same thing. It will actually be disbursed there. In fact, there's one case where they actually disbursed one of the money from UG to Penang also. So we need to sort that out also lah, because of the confusion of the name. Okay. But we cannot play that game also lah, to say just because we have the same name, we can have that, because money is different. Okay. So this is one requirement in the guideline. You will notice it is there. Yep. So in your application, this is a layout of MyGrant. You will see that, like say you add in the name lah. Okay. The way you call is one thing. In MyGrant, the way you call is through you search. You search the name of of your co-researcher, but common names are very hard to find, and a lot of names will come. Like for example, if you have Muhammad, these are all common first name, right? And then subsequent you have the name, but it's quite kind of hard to find. You know, like maybe Chinese surname also sometimes the same. Maybe hard to find, because when we try to find, sometimes cannot get. So I would recommend, when you want to invite your co-researcher in, have their MyGrant ID. Ask them to give you their MyGrant ID, because that one is very specific. The one when you put in there, only one name will come out. So when that come out, then you can add, and automatically they will come in lah. But one thing you need to understand, that once they come in, right, certain point in their names also, it will be highlighted later on that if, like say for example, here we have one lecturer from UPSI. Imagine for our grant, one lecturer from UPSI. So if the UPSI lecturer never update their MyGrant profile, you cannot send your proposal to PGRC, because the system won't allow, saying that please request the co-researcher to verify the account in their respective institution. Okay, so these are the things that you need to do, like before you apply for grant, you make sure that all your co-researcher has already updated their MyGrant. That's one thing. Also make sure that their R&D, their RMC lah, sorry, their RMC has also verified their profile. Otherwise, you cannot move forward. The only thing you can do is drop them, and then forward your application for process. And then whenever you have some comments, then add them back in lah. That one you can. Okay. So that is one thing, one information as well. Another one thing, all these come automatic. You would not need to fill up anything. The thing that you need to fill up is the next, the last two column, which is the next appointed leader and also the role. These two is mandatory. If some of y'all who leave it blank, I would advise y'all, again, KPT goes in marking rubric. Every point that we have here has a mark. More than 80% you are recommended. More than certain, like maybe 85 to 90, you are highly recommended. Less than 80%, you are not recommended. So these are all marking rubric where they will ask a question where, is this being filled up or not? If you are not being very clear about the roles and responsibilities of your co-researchers, then you lose mark. So why you want to lose mark? Because you never fill this. So I would recommend y'all, whoever have applied, who leave this blank, first thing first, fill in as specific as possible. Maybe when you go to your methodology section in your proposal, you have all the phases, right? Maybe phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and all that. Maybe represent them. So these are the people that will do in phase 1. This person will actually help. This person is an expert in maybe using smart PLS. This person is an expert maybe using, support vector machine kind of algorithm. This one is very good in using Python, so they can do data processing easy using maybe Anaconda and Jupyter Notebook, whatever lah. Fill in there to say the roles of them. There's no sleeping partner here in that particular part, so please fill in. Another one thing is please click on this. Okay. Another one thing, this one I recently found together with our researcher here, is that I had to end up coming in and try to solve the thing. During application time, when you click here, automatically something appears here to say assign the co-researcher as principal investigator. Don't click on that, because if you click on that, right, your whole proposal is now under that co-researcher. It is okay if it's for us lah, but if it goes to like other university, right, then it'll be very hard. Then you need to call them. You need to tell them to open up, or you maybe need to ask them to assign you back your own proposal. So please don't make that mistake. It's okay for you to check. You click here. This one is okay. This is just a checklist. Not a checklist, is just a place where you can check. So you check on this. That means you're trying to say that In the case where I'm no more working in the institution, I'm no more in the institution, this person will take over, yes. But once you click here, something will appear here. I think most of you will be aware. Don't click on that. Click on that, then you need to solve it lah. Okay. So that's one thing. Okay. So another one thing where they've added new thing for this particular FRGS is three things lah. You need to have a pattern search now, where you need to go to lens.org. I will show you all that website and what are you to do lah in that, and also what for you to fill up. If you go to the link, right, you will see a pattern search document there where you need to fill up lah. I will show you also later on how to fill that up also. There is a part where for social science and science, there will part where everybody needs, all the main PI needs to fill in. Then you choose lah whether you are in the science or also social science category. Okay, so these three things has been introduced since last year, which is pattern search, and their website also they give it to you, which is you need to go through lens.org. Lens.org is basically like a database lah, for you to search for patterns and all that. And it's free. You don't need to pay. It's free. You have access to a lot of pattern documents there lah. Okay, and it's encouraged for you to have collaboration and industry, at least a letter of intent. Okay, at least a letter of intent for MyGrant. So if you have somebody to have like in their letterhead lah, to say that you are working with the company or SME or together with this project, and then attach the LOI document inside your MyGrant. And also there is a part for risk management, not so much of writing, but there will be a part where you need to write so like, if possible, do a SWOT analysis for your risk management and write it in the section where you need to put in under risk management. And of course, then there is a normal check where timing, budget, and also your maybe other things you need to put whether it is in the higher side, medium, or also the lower side of a risk. Okay, we will go through this once I demo the MyGrant to you all. Yeah, so basically this is the document lah. Okay, your pattern search document comes in this document. So if you go to the link, you can click on this simplified pattern search report, and then you need to fill in information once you have obtained the information in the lens.org lah. Okay, so KPT telah membuat penambahan terhadap borang carian pattern dengan mewujudkan 3 session seperti berikut. So one, there's a compulsory section. Basically, you have 1, 2. This compulsory section is where all the PI, the principal investigator, grant applicant, you need to fill up. And then for section 3, 4, and then 5 to 8 is depending on the stream lah. If you are from the social science, then you need to fill up 3 and 4. If you are from the STEM side, then you need to fill up 5 to 8 and don't need to fill up 3 and 4. Either one. So again, 1 and 2 mandatory, 3 and 4 or 5 and 8 is depending on your stream lah. Okay. So the document is available there. If you can just write this. In fact, if you go to MyGrant also, and you can download the document lah. And if you don't want to download, if you have this, you just change this to 20. But it's a version lah, so don't change it lah. Okay. Yeah. So this is the website for lens.org. So lens.org is very simple. When you log in, there is a keyword. So let me just show you here if I can. So if you see, one thing I don't like about WebEx is that something will kacau you from the top. You know, the thing will drop down, right? So yeah, so this is lens.org. Very simple only. You just put in your keyword. If you want to be very specific, you be in terms of date. For example, you want to do maybe dye sensitize. The keyword lah. Don't use general word. Use keyword. Those keywords are something that is maybe famously used lah. Because if you use keyword, like for example, I used to have a lecturer put in certain terms like industry 4.0. So industry 4.0, it's not a product. It's just a what do you call this? I should say kind of like a reference for you to see what are the subcategories in industry 4.0. So if you put industry 4.0, definitely things will come, but it'll jumble up. Like you cannot really narrow down to your own this one. So like for example, I have a really specific dye sensitized solar cell. For example, this is something that is of my research. I click on this, I click search. So Lens.org will result in how many thousands of document that is there lah. So if you see here, so all this is involved. What you're going to do is you try to see, this is some work also like you need to see which part of the pattern has already been applied. So if you look at it like dye sensitized solar cell is a very specific word, but there are many patterns here. You see JP, all these are pattern document lah. You can see. All right. So then your next question is, obviously I can read your mind. Your next question is, what if everything is there lah? Your keyword is already there. Can you apply or not? Yes, you still can apply. The reason why they have this is basically to tell you all, of course, you have 27,000 something of pattern records. Similar family and all this, you can go and check and all that. You see the keywords are there. How? You want to prove that particular point or column in MyGrant, you want to prove that, of course, they are there, but they are not similar to, or they are not same with what I'm doing. Mine is a different idea. And you need to summarize like most of the pattern that has been done. Most of it is revolving using maybe, like for example, this one, they are using chemical properties. But my one is not using chemical properties. I'm going on a greener approach. My greener approach is using maybe natural pigment from plants. These are something new. I don't see anything about nature based here. Most of their properties, their what do you call it, their recipe is nothing got to do with something of my methodology. But my methodology is new. So you're going to prove that by putting it here. And you can actually put the link also inside there. So they will ask you in this document, in this document here, they will ask you to put in all the information here. So you can have to put the information you write down accordingly. You read and write down. But there will be an example later I will show you. So once you write this down, panel also will see based on your search. Are you telling the truth or not? Is it really new or not? Okay. So panel just wants to see that you have actually done a pattern search, and then you declare that, of course, this project is there. Of course, why you need to apply if you know your idea is already there. The main reason is for you to say that it's there, but it's not in Malaysia. So I'm doing it in a context of a Malaysian culture, in Malaysian settings. These kinds of things you can tell. Of course, it's there, but then it's not similar to the methodology that I'm proposing. Mine is new. So this is the way you're going to write. Though there is a 27,000 pattern search being obtained once the search is being done, but most of the pattern is intent on chemical use or chemical solvent being used for fabrication purpose, as compared to the methodology proposed by the project that is being submitted for this research. These are the things that you're going to write. You want to say you are different. That's the main point. Okay, hope you get the point. All right. So yes, so we go one by one here. So if, for example, you see here, one of the keywords here is this one. Of course, it's taken from some sources. The link search. Once you search, right, you want to narrow down your search to be like, this is not general. This is narrow to my focus. Then the keyword that you use, you're going to put in here. Like for example, I use dye sensitized solar cell. That's my keyword. So I'm going to write here, dye sensitized solar cell. And then I'm going to copy that URL link. I'm going to paste it here. And then I'm going to put the number of search. Just now you saw 27,000 something. That's the number of search. And you're going to answer this question. The first question, has the number of patent published increased for the past 10 years? So you do some search to see whether there is a button there. You can see the trend. Has it increased or not? Then you can say yes. Something increasing is actually good. It's not bad because it shows potential. It shows relevant. It shows that this research is the trending research now. So it's a good thing. Even if it's a no also, you can say that you are picking this up because maybe the use case of those particular research wasn't there. Like for example, like now data science and data analysis using all the sophisticated machine learning process were there back in the days, but most of it was in theoretical, more on mathematical. But since there is no maybe supercomputers or evolution of computer increases, the processor increases based on Moore's law, uh, this cannot be done. So now we are using those things for the purpose of this research. So you can say that also lah. Goreng lah, whichever there is in the result, you try to say that has benefit for your research lah. Okay. So number two, has the number of patents published decreased for the past years? So of course, if yes means down is no lah. Cannot be yes, yes, right? So yes and no, no, yes, and so on. Okay. Does the description of higher CPC classification accurately represent the area technology? This one is basically for those people under this area lah. Okay. And then you can actually do your own thing. Basically, you see there's an appendix where in the part where you do Lens org, there's a section. You can actually write certain things and actually refer to the appendix. So in the appendix, you can write something like this. Your Tajo FRGS, your pattern search and all that. And you can actually, bring back the title and do some justification lah. Like this is one example from my FRGS done in a lecturer in UITM. So basically try to justify, these are the pattern search, these are the regions where the pattern is most relevant, but there is none maybe done in the Pasaran Asian here. So nothing can be seen in Asian market. So maybe your scope is now doing a research, but it's involving more on Asian side rather than in Europe or other places lah. So these are the things that you try to justify. And also, if you notice, these slides are all available in the link. You can actually refer to this lah. Okay. Another one thing is that, you keep it within us lah, because these are the things that I take other people's sources. Definitely, there's a citation at the end lah, but then again, share within ourselves only lah. Okay. So all these are the things that you can refer to also. How do you want to write for your pattern search? How do you want to narrow down? You want to justify by these graphs and all that, which is actually available in lens.org. You just need to work your way around lens.org and find these things lah. Okay. All right. So another one requirement because we go on these three things, right? We are talking about these three main points here, which is pattern search, collaboration, and risk management. So we have already gone through lens.org. Another section in the MyGrant is actually asking you for collaboration with the industry. So this collaboration, like I said, if you have letter of intent, adding together lah. But for FRGS is digalakan, for PRGS is diwajibkan. That being said, like I repeat again, at the end of the day, these are all rubrics. Kalau tak ada markah. Kalau ada markah lah. Very simple only. So if kalau ada, you ada markah lah. So if you want to make sure you are in the higher side of the 80, make sure ada lah. Kalau tak ada masalah, tapi kurang markah lah. Okay, so research collaboration with industry agency is penyelidik perlu berkolaborasi dengan pihak industri agensi yang berkaitan bagi melaksanakan projek penyelidikan. Bukti dokumen adalah sekurang-kurangnya surat niat, letter of intent, dan lain-lain dokumen yang berkaitan. Okay, then maybe you want to ask a question. That means most of our researcher here, do they have or not? I say yes, they have. Some very simple letter only. If you want me to share some of the letter of intent, I can share you some templates lah, which I actually done for certain the previous PIs and all that. Get part of your collaborators in your research project to actually give you a letter of intent lah, saying that they are interested because their company is looking at this particular research. So they are interested in joining force in your research. Get them to sign and then upload lah. Okay, it's as simple as that lah. Okay, or maybe not as simple as that lah. Okay, to find people. Collaboration industry, of course, you can be any industry agency, any organization, any community. Yes, you can do community based like if you're joint venture with some JKKK and all that. Yes, you can get that sign from that Ketua Kampung or something like that to maybe your research is about investigating rural areas. So you want to go through there and then you want to get some feedback from maybe from the B40 group or maybe from the the T20 group, I don't know, anything. So you can actually approach those particular people and they can actually give you a letter of intent, signed, chop also by ketua kampung or so on lah. Okay, or policy makers. You can actually approach the policy makers, which will be best lah. Like for example, I had a lecturer came in, telling that they want to talk about maybe a research on, maybe the jumping lompat party kind of research. So this is something that is currently trending, right? Like how, the anti hopping law. Currently, they are actually trying to look into that. Maybe the lecturer says he wants to do something like that, lah. Which I think is quite interesting also. So if you want to affiliate yourself with some policy maker, maybe that will be some stronghold for your proposal lah. When you submit to the panel, panel know, oh okay, penyelidik ini ada kolaborasi lah dengan kementerian ni. So dia dah tahu dah dia akan buat macam mana dengan kementerian ni. Dan orang-orang ni, ni orang kuat ni. So they can, it's strength lah for your rubrics. All right. So these are the places that I said just now. Where do you write this? Your risk, right? You put in your SWOT analysis and all that, but not SWOT inside here. You write down and you say that there's an attachment in your appendix. Some of y'all may be wondering why is the appendix session in that MyGrant. It's basically for things like this. You want to write and based on appendix, then upload that. And these are the things that you need to click, need to choose. Okay. So normally like now times like COVID and rising cases where traveling is something, travel restriction is something to look at. Your timing, is it at the higher risk or the medium risk or the low risk? In terms of budget, do you think your budget will go off due to certain circumstances? For example, like nowadays, like since last year or maybe early this year, material cost increases, right? Material cost increases. And then now, for example, if you look at the war that is going on now, most of this oil price and all that is being, because since it's coming from these particular regions, right? Maybe it's delay and all that. So these are certain things that maybe you want to add in that can contribute to some budget risk maybe later on also. I want to give you all some example is when one time when I apply for a grant, and I wanted to buy a micro hydro generator, a micro hydro generator whereby it's actually using the stream for it to generate power. This particular spec of generator can only be obtained in China. So we've done the budget, we got the quotation, everything we upload. Mana tahu, of course, like now you send the application, March it goes to KPT, only September you'll get the result. By that time, the company closed down. So when the company closed down, they're no more selling this particular thing. I need to go and outsource. And I need to go and outsource, price increase already because very hard to get that particular spec. Ended up I need to customize because I need to make sure that the budget is allocated or used for that particular product only. So these are the risk factor that I myself personally face during my budget. So these are the things that you need to estimate. Of course, now you can put low. And also another one thing is that by saying low, medium, high, definitely it will actually affect your grant in the perspective of panel because if you're saying budget is high, then it's something for them to really look at giving you the amount of money, right? So these are the things that you need to see whether you want to put low, medium, maybe put in the medium area because like times like this, you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe, you want to travel overseas, but then cannot. So maybe that is in terms of tactical, maybe in terms of timing, there's a higher risk. All right. So select them accordingly. All right. Risk assessment. So these are the risks that I listed down. So what are the risks that normally involve in leading a project? Definitely these are the risks. These are external factors that could potentially jeopardize your project and it's beyond your control. Okay. So it's very important for you to access the factor that could jeopardize your project. So for example, like I said, failure to purchase the desired equipment, like my story. Equipment doesn't arrive on time. Yes, definitely. Maybe supposedly you plan your milestone and according to the vendor, it say 3 months supposedly come already. But mana tahu that country is having certain problem, then cannot this one. So timeline extended. So there's a problem there. Anticipate these kinds of risk. Equipment malfunctions or under maintenance. This is, for example, before you apply the grant, you say the equipment is in the university and it's functioning perfectly. Everything have functioned perfectly. But whenever you want only something happen one. Every one of us will have this kind of problem, right? Whenever the D-Day arrive, then only the equipment knows that we got money. He will ask us to fix it lah. Then it will start making problem like our car and all that lah. When you get salary only, suddenly, need to go and do servicing. This one tak boleh pakai, itu tak boleh pakai. All things they know lah. So they malfunction. So keep a contingency plan lah. So like I will tell you how to do that. Delay in milestone because of all this. Postgraduate student runs away. So this is a case. Maybe runs away is a bit extreme lah. Postgraduate student leaves say that mid project 6 months doing the project, the students say that cannot do already. I don't have the competency, the patience. I cannot I cannot be continuing with that. But you pay them money already. Money is being taken out already. So how? So these are the risks that you need to anticipate. Company closed down, like I said. Failure to obtain approval from relevant authority to conduct research in area of interest. This is my personal one also lah. Like the one I said for micro hydro, we got an approval from the previous pengarah to actually install that in air terjun lah. But mana tahu when the time the grant comes, the pengarah changes. Repeat lah, we have to do the whole thing again to get the approval. But this time they don't approval because they are concerned with environment. They don't want to have some construction actually happening at that particular area and all that. So these are the things that you really need to anticipate lah. And these are the things that you cannot foresee. H team members collaboration company withdrawn can also your letter of intent, the partner say okay, because you already minimize your budget. Your budget you say because you only need this amount because most of the other thing the company providing the equipment is from the company, so we don't need to buy new one. We can actually use from the company. But mana tahu the company also suddenly back out from the project, and then now you have no access to that, and you now need to use the equipment. How? Allocated budget is not sufficient due to lower currency rate and price increase. Material cost lah. Whatever you put now, you cannot anticipate that it will be the same once the grant is given to you. In fact, definitely that's for sure that whenever you apply for a grant, ministry will try to remove some amount of money lah, reduce some amount of money, sorry. Definitely you won't get the amount that you apply for. So the trick around is, I think you know the answer lah. Of course, apply a bit higher lah. Anticipate these kinds of risk. Add in 30 to 40% addition from the amount of price that you put there. Then you may ask the question, how to increase because the quotation is from the vendor. My answer is that pandai-pandai lah. Okay, you anticipate. You maybe tell your vendor, I'm going to get the money at this particular point. Will the price remain the same at the end of the year or not? Then the vendor will say, no, I cannot promise you because we don't know what's happening nowadays. So, I don't know, maybe increase, maybe decrease, I don't know. Then you say, please anticipate the price hike if I were to receive this grant at the end of the year. Okay, because quotation only ma. So I'll then just give you the quotation and upload in the system so that it's tally with whatever you are applying for. Okay. Yeah, risk management, like I said just now, put in all the check, the check accordingly. Again, this is from this particular person lah. All right, quite famous person to actually talk about FRGS and all that. I always hear his talks also. SWOT analysis. So this example is actually from him as well, because sometimes, right, like I'm sure most of us, when we write risk, we write it too general. But some people are very specific. They want to really tell to the KPT, they really want the grant. They really tell the KPT that I have also done my SWOT analysis. I want to mitigate my risk, to reduce the risk from certain things that I've mentioned. Like here, I've mentioned all this. These are all maybe some external and internal issues also. So I have also put in all my risk accordingly. You want to refer to this, the slide is available in the link. You can just see lah. You will also notice another one thing. The PI actually written in Bahasa Malaysia. So there's no restriction in KPT saying that you need to write only in English. If you can write in Bahasa and your Bahasa is very good and you think you can actually express your research proposal very well in Bahasa, by all means tulis saja. Okay. FRGS grant output, of course, the guideline shows you that for a 3 years project, you need to have one PhD or at least a two master student for 3 years project. For a 2 years project, only one master student. And also the PI, the principal investigator or the main researcher for this particular grant should be the supervisor. And the student should do the master or PhD in the institution. Cannot do other institution, you pay them money and some of the professor there become PI, cannot. It's a regulation, it's a rules for this guideline. Another one thing is that uh, taking students, RA students, even we are facing problem getting local students to actually do masters and PhD, even though you give them money also. Like now, even PhD and master, their RA money has increased. Master, they are giving you 2,000 as compared to previously 1,800. PhD, they're giving you 2,500 or 2,300, if I'm not mistaken, 2,500 or something like that. Later on, we'll see. Another one thing about, like say, if you are having 3 years project, but you want to employ two master student, salah seorang daripada student itu kena local lah. Because if you are intending to take foreign student, it is always a ratio 2 to 1. That means if the institution, this one is what they tell me lah. If the institution already have local student, 2 to 1, dua local student, then only you boleh ambil satu foreign student. They want to make sure that the money spent for local talent, because we want to have to pump in how many thousand of PhD holders by 2030 is not easy, right? So they want to have local talent lah. So think about it when you want to hire students. And of course, another one thing I want the researchers to know here is that identify final year students now. Maybe you identify them, you tell them that, okay, maybe you can pursue your PhD or master with your CGPA. Maybe you want to do with me, or you want to continue certain projects from your final year project. You have the student ready lah. Then when you start apply, kalau untung and you get this grant, then employ the student. Like one of our lecturers also is doing that. Have a very good student, then get a grant. Now the student is doing masters with us. Okay, so a very good story lah. All right. Also, another one thing is that in terms of output, we talk about human capital in terms of GRA, graduate research assistant. They have to do masters and PhD. Second is that you need to publish paper. So 2 papers lah, 2 journals lah. One maximum have to be WOS, and another one can be Scopus. So these 2 category only. So when you write your output, they will ask you for the name of the journal, your first output lah. Maybe there will be, if I'm not mistaken, is it here? Yes. You see, this is the layout of your MyGrant. What will happen here? They'll ask you the number of publication you want to put. Definitely it's 2. Either one of these lah. So mandatory you need to add WOS, Web of Science based publisher lah. So put 1 here, and another one just promise a Scopus lah. So Scopus not necessarily be high impact one. Maybe you can have a good index journal, but it's only Scopus index. It's not like it doesn't have any impact factor and so on lah. Okay. So 1, output 2. Another one thing, jangan over promise lah. Don't over promise. You don't think that when you say you want to publish 5 papers, KPT is going to believe and going to give you the grant. It doesn't work that way, because they give you 2, letak 2 only, okay? And then name of your journal, go to the publisher that you intend to publish, get their ISSN number, get their link, and get the name of the journal, also the details of their impact factor and all that, write down inside each of the column lah. Okay. Some lecturer will ask me, is it mandatory to publish in those things that we want? Seboleh-bolehnya lah, anda digalakkan untuk menerbit di dalam jurnal yang telah anda bubur di dalam grant anda. Akan tetapi, sekiranya grant anda berada di dalam kategori WOS dan Scopus, pihak KTP akan boleh menerimanya sebagai output daripada grant tersebut. You see? Cik, very good, He's speaking in Bahasa now. Cik, okay? So, Yeah, so you can actually, but this is just the cukup syarat thingy lah. All right. So number 3, intellectual property. So untuk FRGS anda digalakkan untuk file for intellectual property lah. Okay, yeah, anything lah. You want to file for patent, you want to file for maybe copyright. I don't know, trademark, no lah, not trademark lah. So maybe copyright the most lah. You maybe put in output as one. Digalakkan to have. And if you ask the question that who pays for intellectual property, they don't pay for intellectual property. The institution needs to pay for intellectual property. Also subject to the institution intellectual property policy, as well as the government intellectual property policy. So for example, if whatever output that's generated from MyGrant, it is actually like researcher university, and now the government or the Malaysian actually owns part of the revenue or profit that actually comes or derived from that intellectual property lah. But it's not bad, it's good because you're having support. Instead of doing it alone and paying money like beribu-ribu you want to pay for intellectual property, you have support system here. You have the institution to support you to pay for intellectual property. You have the government to support you to maybe from here onwards go to that other TRL phases to support for your intellectual property and all that. Okay, these are the things that is actually the positive side lah. Apart from that, the 1, 2, and 3 is something of mandatory. And number 3 is, of course, is galakan. Number 4 and 5 is basically the output in terms of what is your impact. These are the things you need to write down in your proposal. The answer is pretty much clear because remember you have put in your research domain, the SDG, your shared prosperity vision, all these, right? Those are the subsection where your research output will try to help achieve. And those are the impact that you're going to list down here lah. So you're going to list down those things that you put on top there. Okay, what is the impact in SDG? What is the impact in MySTRE? What does it help in the national key priority area? All these kinds of things you're going to write. You're going to also write is what is it impactful in terms of economy. So you can write in a way where if this is actually, if the project is actually studied or if the model is actually developed, then it can actually improve certain process in the industry. And when they improve the process in the industry, it saves the industry few millions because currently they are doing it in a manual way and there's no solution for them in fundamental aspect to help them improve their process. Okay, it can be in a way where your algorithm, maybe certain algorithm development for the backend system in a machine can actually help the particular machine to now maybe do things faster or get more information from the machine. So all that result to your particular algorithm and save them a lot of money in terms of, either because time and money and all that, save them time, which means save them money, more production, and this is the impact. So you can also name specific industry that can actually be beneficial for them if they use your methodology, your theory, your idea, your concept, your policy, your model, all that lah. Okay, and name them lah. Number 5 is what are the novel theories, what are the new finding, what are the new knowledge you've already gathered there. Okay, so these are the things that you need to justify and you need to add in inside your MyGrant proposal. Another one thing, these are things not you need to type in Word file and all that. You go to MyGrant later on, I will show you. You register yourself. These things are just there only. Fill in the blanks. Fill everything accordingly. You add in figures. You add in whatever information you want there. So it'll be very helpful for you. So my take here is that's why you see that successfully writing for a proposal, you don't need to actually go to MyGrant just to write proposal for FRGS. If you want to write proposal for anything also, MyGrant can be a basis for you to see what do you need in a proposal to provide something which is fully detailed, something that wherever grant provider has this proposal, they are, maybe happy because all those informations are inside there. All right. Okay. So now we go for budget. So in government scheme, they go in votes lah. They call it votes. Okay, so they have many votes, but for this particular purpose, for Ministry of Higher Education, at least in the context of FRGS, they go from these votes lah. So if you see V 11,000, it's actually vote 11,000 until vote 35,000 lah. Each of these has its own aspect of how much can you spend lah, or how much can you allocate accordingly. Since the budget is around 250,000, uh, later on we will go for that subcategory, which is how much can you apply and all that. Uh, yeah, so for the case of vote 11,000, 11,000 is solely on GRA. Basically, if you want to hire GRA, you want to employ, not say employ, like you want to hire a PhD student to as your research assistant, you can pay them money. So how many years that you are paying them and all that, you can actually fill in according to the column that is available in MyGrant. So the amount of money is this lah. Like I said, it has been increased. That means last time, before 2021, it was 1,008. 2021 onwards, master student gets 2,000 ringgit, PhD get 2,500 lah. Not to say master student lah. That means undergraduate students wants to do project and categorize their project into a master level, take a master's degree, then every month they can be paid 2,000 because they are your research assistant. But the G there signifies they are a graduate research assistant, which means they goes in the category of either PhD or master lah. And previous practice by other institutions is that some of them actually do a KWSP withdrawal from that. The people who are paying that does that also. But kali ini tidak dibenarkan lah. So this is fully goes into the students' pocket. There's no tax deduction and all. Of course lah, definitely not tax deduction lah. There's no caroman KWSP per keso and all that cannot be deducted. Okay. But for the case of PRGS, of course, there is RA also. You can actually take a postdoc student also can. But then you have an initial amount of 15,000 that you can pay for patent. So you can see, if you apply FRGS, then you want to do a pre-commercialization, you can apply for PRGS. In this case, PRGS can actually fund for your patents lah. Okay. Now we go for the amount lah. For example, like I said, vote 11,000 goes in paying for research assistant, and those research assistant can do postgraduate program with us lah. Okay. Postgraduate fees is not being paid. This is just their allowance only. So if the student wants to use this allowance to pay for their fee, by all means they can do that lah. We have no control of how much of money they can use. Then you have vote 21,000. Vote 21,000 adalah perjalanan dan pengangkutan. What does it mean is that you want to go to certain places to do research. Maybe you want to distribute your questionnaire to a company, or maybe you want to distribute at a certain state. You want to go to maybe from Penang, you nak pergi Selangor, you want to go Johor, maybe those are the intended places where your focus area is. You want to go there, or maybe your students wants to go there, or your co-researcher want to go there. Yes, this is the place for you to apply. Not only that, you want to go to international, you want to go to overseas to attend conference. The flight ticket, you apply from here. Perjalanan and pengangkutan, you want to sewa a car when you go to international, so it's here. All these are pengangkutan lah, not sewa lah. The sewa in terms of like you bus tickets and all these you want to use for that, it goes under here. Dalam negeri conference also perjalanan, you can use this lah. The amount you can use is not more than 40% of the entire budget. For the purpose of conference, 20% from the 40% can be used from the for conference lah. So you want to go local, international and all that, you can use 20%. The new guideline has a very detailed explanation on how much you can pay for travel. So whatever lah, wherever you want to travel, the cost of travel goes under 21,000. Okay. Then vote 24,000 lah is for sewa. You want to sewa maybe a room for your setup of your experiment. Maybe you want to do the effect the effect of radioactive wave, or the effect of wave from the antenna in the cognitive decision of a maybe lecturer or something. Maybe you want to have a setup where you know employ wave there, and then you want the subject to actually do something. Then you need a room, so you want to pay rental for that. Say this is sewa. You want to rent equipment, this is the place. You want to rent pengangkutan, this is the one. Okay, so but whatever you do, make sure you have your quotation ready lah. Meaning to say that you know you're gonna use that building, ask the particular person how much is it rental per month, get it on paper, and then upload this lah. Justification is a must for all the things that you're claiming. Also, if you want to ask the question how to apply for pengangkutan, the pengangkutan mileage always based on the institution. Like for us is what 70 cent per kilometer. If you're driving yourself, so you translate how many kilometers times with to and fro times with the 70 cent. That's the amount you claim for one time perjalanan lah. Then you times with how many times you going there lah. And then you want to say for flight ticket, get some average lah. Like normally during this time, how much would the flight ticket be to travel to maybe KL, Johor, something like that lah. So get all this information ready for y'all lah. And this is the way you write down. Don't just put amount there. There will be a place in MyGrant. I think it's here. I think. Later I'll show you. There will be a place in MyGrant that you can actually put in the justification. Then you put in the amount, and the amount will be based on the number of years you apply lah. If you apply 3, there will be, if you apply 3 years, there will be 3 column. If you apply 2 years, there will be 2 column. So year 1, year 2. So plan your year accordingly also. So it is non-logical that you go international or conferences before you do your project. So don't put it in the first year lah, maybe put it in the second year. Second year only go conference. Or maybe first year go for local conference, second year go for international conference. Okay, but definitely first year is where you do experiment lah. Don't put second year you do experiment. Not logical. Or maybe if you say you're 2 years or so you're doing experiment, then they will check your timeline. Is your timeline tally with the first year and second year? So all that has to be synchronized together. Okay, then we go for 27,000. So 27, 28, 29, 35 are all important parts of the research lah, because these are your supplies. Okay, 27,000 adalah bekalan dan bahan penyelidikan yang berkaitan dengan penyelidikan saja. Justifikasi dan serbu harga is needed lah. So for those of y'all who under maybe material, what are the material costs? Maybe some of y'all want to buy some consumables. Consumables are all going under here lah. Okay, so these are in government term barangan pakai buang. Okay, so you want to do some refill. Maybe you are doing a 3D printing. Most of your under additive manufacturing, you need a cartridge for that. It goes under here. Okay, and of course quotation is needed lah. And then wo 28,000, which is baik pulih kecil dan ubah suai. This is for the example that I said lah. Like for example, you have a machine in the institution that is faulty, but you need money to fix that. The equipment costs expensive, but the fixing is around the range that you think can apply to fundamental. You can put the cost by pulih of the particular equipment in 28,000. Okay, so and the equipment has to be in here only lah, in KDU lah, for example, in UOW lah, for example, because it's a machine that is here. All right, then 29,000. Okay, whatever you put in 21,000 that you're paying for the event that you're going, 29,000 is the fees for that lah. For example, you go conference fee 29,000. You go international conference fee is that. You publish paper in journal, the APC is from 29,000. You want to do proofreading, 29,000. You want to apply, you want to pay for consultant honorarium for them to do certain, maybe you don't know how to do certain statistical method, you're not an expert of that, you want to pay consultant to do that, 29,000. All that goes under perkhidmatan services lah. So yuran persidangan, conference fee, pencetakan, hospitality. For example, you take survey questionnaire, you want to give them goodies. Of course, you pay them token of appreciation for answering your questionnaire. This is the place lah, your honorarium, all that. Perkhidmatan professional, consultation, data processing, all this goes under 29,000. Okay. You want to go for short course also, you can. Like maybe you want to improve yourself in certain methodology, you can for this. But these are all the things that you cannot pay for certification. Like for example, you want to take a certified SEDA energy manager. This one all cannot lah, because it has to have linkage to your research. That's why early on you say segala perbelanjaan yang dicadangkan perlu digunakan untuk projek yang dimohon lah. That means whatever you propose, the amount needs to be for that project alone lah. Okay. Of course, it may sound like some of you may be saying that, of course, we apply for the project lah. What else we apply for? But you will be shocked because sometimes you say you apply for this, but your proposal doesn't have any indication where you need the budget. You want to say that this research will be presented in a certain conference, but you have no budget to say paying for the money for the paper. Okay, you want to say you want to fix the equipment, but there's no indication of that equipment present in the institution. So these are the things that, it has to link with all the parts that you declare in your MyGrant. So they will check whether you tally with whatever you claim or not. So this particular part is where the panel is very eager to remove the amount of money lah. Your work is to make sure they don't. Okay, so justify whatever you need. And also they have recently come out with the guideline for pengurusan dana, edisi kelima. So under edisi kelima, it also tell you which vote anyhow also you cannot touch. For example, you've already pledged to pay students for 2 years. Then suddenly not enough money. Then you tell to the student, I can only pay you 6 months because the remaining money I want to use for other things. Cannot. For PGRC, we are not allowed to do. You go and ask the permission from KPT also, they won't allow you to do that because that's an amount that you pledge to pay for the students. And finally, vote 35,000. So this is the asset lah. Pembelian peralatan khas, accessories, termasuk keupayaan peralatan sedia ada. Keupayaan peralatan yang sedia ada. That means addition to certain things lah, like you need the computer cannot lah. They say lah. Later on I'll tell you we bought computer, so even though they say can. Something added to an existing project lah. For example, you buy like you have an oscilloscope, and then you want to connect your oscilloscope to maybe a 3-phase harmonic analyzer. So that is additional to this. This one you can buy because you already have the main one, but buying this is additional to that one you can. Okay. Tidak melebihi 40% daripada keseluruhan budget. Okay. Then the next is what you cannot buy, I think. Okay, penyelidik tidak dibenarkan untuk menggunakan peruntukan grant bagi membuat pembelian as the one below lah. Pembayaran sebarang bentuk yuran keahlian, like I said, cannot. Pembelian bahan rujukan seumpamanya, cannot. Pembelian peralatan ICT dan komunikasi seperti telefon bimbit, laptop, mesin pencetak, cartridge for the mesin pencetak lah, like 3D cartridge can. Because it's something got to do with you fabricating something for the purpose of your fundamental research. Dan seumpamanya, okay, cannot. Number 3, right? Again, at the end of the day, you need to see the clause and say, you cannot buy anything that is not involved in your project, which also means that you can buy something that is involved in your project. And whatever that is saying here, if it's involved strictly for your project, then you can. Because for example, cannot buy PC, they say. One of our proposal, our researcher applied for a PC because we for a tower, they call it, because we cannot afford to have that. That is around 20 to 30K, and we need certain speed for our data processing. And ministry approved that already, and we bought our tower for 25K using fundamental research grant. So that's one perspective you can put in to justify the need of the equipment for the project. Of course, that asset belongs to the government of Malaysia, and UOW is the caretaker of those assets lah. Okay. Another one thing is nombor 5, pembelian peralatan pejabat tak boleh. Alat tulis, kertas, meja, kerusi dan seumpamanya cannot. Pembelian peralatan storan, external hard disk cannot. Pen drive, CD seumpamanya cannot. Okay, very smart researcher also normally what they do is that they don't buy 35, they buy parts of component, and but panel also smarter lah. They know that when you combine them, it will become a PC lah. Okay, so these are all the tricks that the researcher used to do in Kantoi lah. But one or two successfully managed to get lah. But then when put together, they know lah. You are actually building a PC master race like that. Okay. Number 7, pembayaran sewaan ruang fasiliti di institusi masing-masing. These are the things even because the reason why they say this because it's happening. You are using a place in the institution and the institution is actually charging you for that. Tak boleh. Pembayaran pemfailan intelek IP cannot. Lain-lain pembelian yang tidak berkaitan secara langsung dengan projek penyelidikan. So number 9 is the key point that I was telling you lah. Kalau berkaitan boleh beli, tapi justify kaitan tu lah. Okay. So nombor 10, penggunaan peruntukan geran bagi charge pengurusan pentadbiran adalah tidak dibenarkan. Meaning to say, for example, PGRC wants to charge researcher for actually doing all the work of the administration work to, fine-tune your grant, approving EPRN, but all the money is actually using from grant. I charge all the researcher 10% for my consultation fee or something like that. Open tabiran, operational costs, cannot lah. Okay, and one reason why they put it is because some institutions were actually doing that. All right. Okay, so then now we talk about the research output. This research output is actually in one point, right? You can actually say it like your keyword or so. What are the research output is that you can actually come up with a kit. Like for example, the RTK kit is actually fundamental research. So you use that particular thing to detect certain thing, but you need the kit to host those particular thing lah. Okay. For example, diagnostic, you have a tool, maybe a software, a tool for you to add together with a certain hardware system, database. You create a database, based on, your research. You want to do profiling of certain variant, new plan variant, equipment. Equipment is in a way where the fundamental research ended up being used in that equipment lah. Meaning that equipment is just a host to hold the output of the fundamental research. Instrument, policy, framework, maybe new parameters. Maybe you prove the serums measurement SI is actually somewhat rather needs to be improved because of new kinds of alloy or material that is involved nowadays. New models, like for example, you create a new model of how banks should access transaction that is happening for new, financial technologies and so on. So these are models, algorithm. You create a guideline, for example, indexing, new theory, assessment, reassessment, framework solution, mechanism, benchmarking. So these are the actual research output that is coming from the FRGS. The actual output lah, I'm saying. Okay. So another one thing is the good FRGS proposal. Okay, basically for a good FRGS proposal, you need to have a concise and solid objective, a problem-oriented research background. Later on, when we look at our guideline, our MyGrant, everything is there for you to just plug everything accordingly based on what they are requesting. Clear and detailed research methodology. Clear and detailed, because we don't really have a clear and detailed research methodology. Sometimes we randomly put in certain methodology but it doesn't have a sequence to it. So have a clear one. Maybe group them accordingly and maybe picturize them. Maybe proper visualization can make panel actually understand how your grant looks like lah. Later I will show you some example also in the slide also is there. Reflective milestone and project activities, relevant and up-to-date references. The red color one is very important for those researchers who recycle research proposal from the previous year. You just want to send very, very fast. You just recycle the one in the previous year. You found out that your references are outdated. So always make sure you update to at least 5 years, 5 years back. Okay. This one is very, very serious as the panel will look at the updated research one. Another one, detailed and convincing budget. The votes that you see there, whatever shilling, whatever amount that you put, you need to really justify the need of that particular product or equipment in your research. So that's why some professor I see they have a symbol for each of the phases. Each of the phases they have the symbol. Each of the equipment they have a symbol. Whenever they do methodology, they link them both together. So basically they're telling their flow chart or basically their diagram, right? They can visualize in a way when they start doing this phase one, who is the researcher involved, what is the equipment used, what is the resources needed, and all this goes into like kind of like a short form. And when the panel reads, panel know lah. When you talk about hardware H2 or hardware 2, this is where they know the continuity of the research is using what equipment accordingly. So they are very detailed. Signify the area of expertise that applicants are being groomed for. For example, your MyGrant profile also is very important. Your profile should be in a way where you as a PI have subspecialized. That means you show that you are a specialist in this, and it is evident based on your publication that you put. Okay, you always need to know that whatever publication you add in your MyGrant profile, those things will project in the proposal already. If you see yours is empty, right? The reason being you never update your MyGrant profile and that is not captured. So when you update that, automatically it will appear in your MyGrant proposal. When you update the project also will reappear. So it will always take the last 5 years publication, the last 5 or 3 years publication if I'm not mistaken. All right. Then signify status of the research that will be performed. Timestamp, infographic. This infographic, another one thing. One comment that panel always give you is they don't like to see lengthy paragraphs. When you can summarize it into something infographic, they like it. You have to remember, for us, it's one application. For panel that is going to sit there for almost 2 days, they're going to see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of application. Start in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening, Okay. Then they're going to see a lot of things, and we pray that our application is maybe in the midday of, not say midday like maybe the third or fourth application after they read Because we don't want them to be too fresh when they're reading that. We don't want them to be too penat also when they read that because they just go in the tendency to reject. But we don't know where will our sequence be. In that case, right, they don't like to see lengthy explanation. Explaining to them your lengthy methodology won't help you get your grant. But even if you have lengthy one, you put a summary at the bottom so that they can just observe and understand. And whatever visualization tool or infographics that you're going to use there, it's something easy for them to understand. Then they can just, okay, then they fully can feel, what are you trying to do there. Okay, so that's one tips for your methodology. Evaluation criteria, cadangan penyelidik adalah memenuhi all these are the keyword. So their evaluation criteria goes on this. I have shown this previously, right? Penyelidikan yang dipohon mestilah merupakan all this idea, theory, konsep, kaedah, model, new methodology. Penyelidikan yang dapat menambah baik suatu policy, improve an existing policy, methodology, dan model penyelesaian. Penyelidikan yang merangkumi isu kemanusiaan, kemasyarakatan, bagi tujuan peningkatan nilai kehidupan dan dalam negara dan sejagat, atau penyelidikan yang berpotensi untuk menyumbang kepada agenda strategik negara, which is all those things that you have selected from the research domain until the SDG. All right, so this is the marking rubric that I'm talking to you about. So evaluation form the panel will have is basically 5% of the marks go in title. So what does it mean? The way you write your title also got marks already. If your title doesn't seem fundamental, you lose mark there already. You can even have a 0 mark because they don't feel the title is a fundamental title. Okay. Then 10% goes to executive summary. These are their marking rubrics. You see their score and their comment. Okay. And you see for executive summary, every part of it gets marks. So 10% divide by all this. Then research background, you see elaborating of title, clarity of problem statement, cited most recent 5 years. You see your references, they will actually check to fill this marking rubric. In line with government policy and national agenda, global aspiration. If you don't recall, you don't bring that in your proposal, you don't bring that in your executive summary or your literature review or any parts of your methodology to address or your research to address those things, you lose marks here. You see, research background 15%, objective 12%, methodology 25%, expected result 10, 5% track record of project leader and composition. They will check also, they got marks. If your co-researchers are somebody that is never handled grant before, never applied for grant before, new applicant, they are fresh like you. These are something that the panel or the committee will not be convinced to give you the government money lah. Okay, 10% for quality of proposal, 5% element of FRGS criteria, whether fulfilled or not, whether you fulfill their guidelines or not. And then 3% for transnational potential, meaning what? Meaning they want to see whether if you apply for this, do you have a potential for at least a national, this one lah, translational potential, sorry. Okay, then once it's a marking rubric, right? Once they sum up, yours is 79 dan ke bawah. It's very easy for them. Pop. Even for first also, if they start to see you reduce the mark here, in their mind, while they're evaluating that, automatically they know this one less than 2 means this one less than 5, this one less than 5, less than 75%. They sometimes won't even read your proposal also. Okay, so you see the flow of how they're going also is very important. You see 79% below cannot. But then if you are 80 to 84 marks, so you are under recommendation. Then 7 to 10, highly recommendation. Okay, but you have to remember another one thing is that they go based on the funding that the Ministry of Finance allocate to Ministry of Higher Education. If this year the budget is not much, the blue color will definitely go to the red color one. Then the green color will be the only one that they will now sub-categorize to 85 to 94 recommended, 95 to 100 most recommended. So all this also is subject to the budget that KPT has lah. All right. And all this scala, you see the scala here, very poor, acceptable, all this. If kurang daripada 5 markah, sekiranya markah yang diberikan bagi salah satu kriteria, part of this also, even title also less than 5. Project secara automatic menjadi not recommended. This part here even happens for internal evaluation. When you have internal evaluation, our panel will have this particular layout also, which is the reason, I think if you are asking a question, why researcher need to give two examiners to PGRC for us to put into that. The reason is being, we don't want this to happen because you will know your associates, like your kenalan, and you will tell them that of course this is not the best of the grant, but if possible give me constructive criticism. Please do not evaluate me below than that, because once the system, the MyGrants system, automatically goes under this, right, the whole thing freezes, don't recommend, and it will just straight away carry forward until automatically you will not be sent to KPT. Okay, even PGRC cannot try to do anything also. We cannot try to do change it from not being in this category. That's why I need your help to ask your examiners lah. Please be lenient, don't reject. If there's any problem, you let me know in my grant. But at the same time, please give me in the recommendation area. Mainly because if it goes in the blue area, a PGRC head, can return your proposal to you for changes. Otherwise, I myself cannot. This is the reason lah. Okay. And then maybe you can ask a question. Why can't I find? Can. But they don't, tak kenal maka tak cinta lah. That's what they say, right? If they don't know you, they don't feel the need to accommodate to your proposal, right? So I have a lot of panel, but they will go very strict lah. If reject means reject lah. No reject means no reject lah. Okay, it's no something they say that help. Another reason is because imagine they put you under recommendation, but they want you to do some correction. What PGRC needs to do is to send the application to you all for you to do recommendation, for you to follow their recommendation accordingly. But then when you submit to me, automatically the process goes back to the panel. So your panel actually needs to be a one that want to do 2 to 3 times of work lah. We got panel that is very patient with us to try to not reject, but then the lecturer doesn't want to follow until the panel call and say, I did my best, but whatever I asked the PI to do, the PI didn't do. Very simple. They never asked the PI to change the proposal. They asked the PI to make sure the format, because the one figure is figure 2, then suddenly figure 1, then suddenly figure 16. Where is the subsequent figure? Please change that accordingly to tidy the whole thing. PI also don't want to do. So at the end, what will happen is we reject lah. So these kinds of minor thing can be the cause of the main KPT panels to evaluate. What you're having now is not the KPT panel. Whoever that is evaluating you is actually internal panel. Internal panel finish, come to PGRC. PGRC, if there's any comment, return to PI. PI change, send it back to PGRC. PGRC will assign this back to the panel. Panel needs to put status recommend, and then RMC needs to check for format, and then we proceed to we don't need to do anything. The system automatically, when the time is up, all those under the category of recommend and highly recommend gets automatically be present in the KPT database lah, for them to do their own work lah. And then for PI, you can see kind of like the scale lah, all green. That means finish from you, finish from RMC, and then waiting for KPT. And then the final color will be, if it's a green color, that means accepted. If it's a purple color, still under review. If it's a red color, they definitely reject lah. So by September, those colors will be available for you all to see lah, which is the result. But by then, PGRC will announce the result already. Okay. Role of RMC, I already mentioned to you all lah. Okay, so all government grant application must be evaluated and recommended by RMC. Not evaluated directly by RMC, we facilitate this particular action. An evaluation report must be submitted together with the application form to MOHE or to MOE or Ministry of Higher Education for the government-based grant lah. So evaluation report meaning to say that, like say you get your grant already, then certain times when you need to do progress report, we need to endorse that and go lah. Evaluation report now is no more manual. It's in the system where you saw your rubric there. This is the evaluation report, which is automatically the MOHE can see who is our PI, who is our PI, who is the external internal panel, what is the qualification of the internal panel, is the internal panel fits with the criteria of internal panel or not. So by default, if your grant has been assigned by internal panel, meaning that the system itself check the qualification of internal panel. For example, if you give me a name of a lecturer who is not an associate professor, and the system of MyGrant states that he or she is not an associate professor, I can't even add in for the system to be your evaluator. Okay. Maybe some of y'all will say, what if the researcher tipu associate professor? Cannot tipu because whenever you change your position in your MyGrant, it automatically gets flagged to RMC, and RMC needs to do the checking to verify the qualification of the lecturer before we click the verification button for you all to do your subsequent work lah. So it's a long process. Only application that are recommended by RMC needs to be submitted to MOHI. Again, this is now automated. This one is previously when they do manual, then we need to do a manual work lah. But now, thankfully for MyGrant, these are all automated lah. Okay. RMC grant process, first PGRC will notify the call for grant. RMC receive the final grant proposal from your appointment of evaluation of panel within the university level. But this case, we have lack of those in AP level or basically other qualification in that as an what do you call this internal panel. That's why we resort to external, where we ask for your suggestion for panels, right? Evaluation by panel appointed internally, then correction done by researchers according to MyGrant, and then re-evaluate panel. That means it goes ding dong. If your panel really wants to do your correction again, then they have to be kind lah. And then final proposal by RMC, we provide a master list. The master list will be provided with all the checklists that I will be fulfilling lah, format, fulfilling the guideline and so on. Evaluation and approval by team of panel in MOHI. From here onwards, it goes to KPT lah. MOHE, because you know they changed the name quite often and never change. Successful, not successful, and the reason is given in RMC. So once the approval is done by them, the status of the project will be given to RMC, and we will actually announce to the lecturers lah, or PI that your grant is either successful and not successful. And those successful will be asked to revise the grant and the budget according to the amount given to them, because whatever you apply, you won't get. You surely get reduced amount. So you need to now fine tune with whatever you get. Those not successful, you can actually see the comments in your MyGrant system. Under your status, you can see the list of comments will be given, which is a good thing because you can improve and submit to us in the future. All right, so creating a profile in MyGrant. So I'm going to go through MyGrant profile. For those new, for those existing, you know this process already. For those new, first thing you need to do is to sign up. You sign up, you write in your name, only very few details. And then once you submit, I receive email, PGRC receives email saying that there is a new registration. So we approve the registration. The next thing is that you need to update your profile. Another one good thing is that here, right, this one is I never see this before, but only in MyGrant only, it gives you this indication. When you type your name and correct password, you want to know your password correct or not, this thing will appear. If this thing doesn't appear, that means your password is wrong. So you need to keep writing until this thing appears. This is one I feel kind of weird, but some kind of like a validation system where they make sure these two things are correct, then see out as a researcher. Okay. And then you need to update your personal info, write your names and everything. You click one by one. So these are your profile. So basically, right, if you look at it by tabs, you have your personal info, project you need to update, your publication, your IP, and if applicable, don't have, never mind. If you have supervision, the supervision here is only the postgraduate supervision, not the undergraduate. What subject you're teaching, any consultation project you got or not, any community service. So this one is kind of like the MOHI CV, where they do it for you to fill up. Okay. Then once you have this proposal ready, everything is done. The first time you want to apply, automatically you'll have your names here, everything. You can add a picture and all that. You have to click on new application. When you click on new application, this thing appears. When this thing appears, of course, you can do two things. You don't need to save this in draft first. You can just change this into the application detail. For example, this year, the name is FRGS 2022-1. So you select based on the drop down, and then you will know that you are currently applying for the FRGS 2022-1, okay, which is the one that we are offering now. And then you write your title. So this title is all this is guided from here on. You look at your tabs. These are all the tabs that you'll go one by one. You write one by one and you save and process. One annoying thing that I think most of those who have applied is that system freezes, because the system only has around 100 and how many seconds for it to do a countdown before it auto saves. When it auto saves, the system freezes lah. So for those first timer, I know what you'll do is you try to refresh, and then one drop down will appear, maybe to say wait, then you cancel and then do back again. These are some things that I know researcher will normally face, because the system, while it's good to guide you, it's also a buggy system. Buggy meaning that a lot of bugs inside here, there's error that you need to be patient to not take your laptop and throw somewhere else. Okay, you have to be patient with the system. So you need to see, of course, automatically when it freezes, you wait for a while, then something will appear at the top, ask you to say, telling you that you have saved this, then automatically you'll transition to the another page. Okay, so first you click on the title of a proposed research, choose your keyword. So the title is something that later we will see. I'll bring out some example. The fundamental title has to be here. So this is where the mark starts. Okay. All right. So this is actually just bringing you to the page where, for example, this is not like, for example, one time you apply, you need to apply until finish. No, you can save and recall and use that. But the problem is, some lecturers normally, when they go back to the system, they always click new application. Then the system creates a new application. You don't need to go to new, but you go to my application. You click on my application, actually those things that you return here will be available, and you click on that pencil sign here. So you are actually editing from the existing thing where you left off. These are all the information that you'll have. For example, the list of grants that you have previously, or anybody invited you for the grant and all that. Invitation, another one. If you are invited for other people's grant, maybe in public university, in your left hand side, you have this invitation part here. This invitation is where you need to click for any kinds of invitation. Like say you are invited for maybe to evaluate also for a future, maybe if you are a social professor or professor, you are being asked to evaluate. This is the part where you need to go and click and agree or disagree to evaluate, or agree or disagree to become the co-researcher for the grants. Okay. All right. So this is the overall layout. Let me show you the MyGrants layout here. But before that, let me see whether I have that section here. Hold on for a while. There will be a section I call demo. Okay, so maybe that's not here. It's okay. Let me bring out the MyGrants system for you to show you the pages and the proposal where you write down. Okay. So again, your Google link, you have all these sustainable, garis panduan 20, all these pattern search. I've added for you all. These are all just a one-stop center where you go. The video for the last year 1 day training also is there, together with subtitle and all. So it's all there. Okay. So for this purpose, I'm doing refresh first. Okay, so for example, let me take one example from our existing grant that we got in 2021 lah. So this was obtained by Dr. Ong Song Kwan and myself for 2021. So I'm going to navigate you all through this example using my own this one. But this one is already obtained lah. So we can also go for new proposals also accordingly. All right. So if you look at your application, so basically the first stage is like I showed, you have your ID, your name, all that there, then your title, and automatically every title gets a, what do you call this, an ID lah. This one don't need to fill up. All this you will get, your title and all that. And then your project leader, these are the detail. One thing is that if you see here, these are all the things that you select. So for basically for us, we are going in terms of health, applied science also, and using industrial revolution because we are looking at the machine learning side for image processing also. Where what SDG that we are looking for, sustainable cities, because we are going on cases of dengue and all that. So the places of for like Dr. Ong where he will be doing, these are the locations lah. All these you need to fill up. So you will be selecting a drop down out of this. And location, another one important point here. You look at the location that we put here. One is, of course, you are in KDU Penang. Some of the research that maybe you conduct here. Then maybe you have some collaboration with USM. And then maybe you have certain places where you need to go and identify those hotspots. Remember that whenever you put the location here, remember to update the budget, because those location will basically means the budget of travel, which is 21,000. You need to have some money to travel to these places. So update them accordingly. Like for example, maybe you start from your point of start is always in UOW Malaysia KDU lah. Like if you're in Penang, then it's Penang. Then from here you calculate where you travel. Okay. But like for example, if you're going to other state, maybe use the airport as a first point of where you want to travel. Or of course, maybe from UOW here to travel to airport, how much you use for fare or you drive until there. And also some other things, maybe you park your car, your parking ticket, all these also include in the 21,000 lah, as in how much of money you need for your travel expenses. These details has to be there also. Okay. Section C, this is the system. This is automatic for you. So for most of y'all, the system automatically gives what do you call this? The duration lah, from 1st of September until. So if you select the one in the bottom, it will automatically choose 2 to 3 years. Okay. Another one, the requirement here, like for example, I'm the co for this grant. We have one from USM. Next chosen leader is here, and it has been written here what is our role and responsibility. And these are all the grants that automatically came out. You see KPI achieve and all that. You need to write in your ID, your profile. That will be automatically brought forward. This one nothing you need to do. And then you see your publications. Whatever you write will be automatically here. Subsequently, you'll have executive summary. Another one thing is the executive summary also has been guided for you to start off with first problem statement. You write your problem statement, okay? And then you write about your objective. Though you have some knowledge about how to write executive summary, but this one is more guided for you to like what is needed, what is KPT wants in your executive summary. They want in your executive summary, you must have problem statement, you must have objective, research methodology, expected output, outcome, significant output from the research project. Everything you put it into a paragraph as an abstract, okay? Another one most important thing is that you need to identify in executive summary by itself, which of these research cluster, SDG, and all that you tend to address and trying to make sure it succeeds from the research output. So at the end, like you finally put your research output is not only the expected model the expected policy that will be delivered. But this policy, this model and all that will also help in, for example, KEGA 2 under subsection 1. So these are the things you need to put in here. Reason being is that later I'll show you, you have we have what do you call that, the where the panel eyeball will look at lah in the proposal. They don't really read fully. They have certain key points for them to see before they read fully. If those are the things that is met, then they will read fully. If those things are not met, these are all the things that easily for them, happily for them to reject. Okay. Then we don't go into too much into this. I will show you some example there. So you see, these are all some infographics. Instead of writing so big like that, we draw into an infographic here, just giving you some introduction. Then some references. You see the methodology, we give infographic. We didn't write so much as well. You see, basically from looking at this, the down part is writing. So everything has been summarized above. When they look at it, they can kind of understand. We define our goal here itself. We go from the start until bottom. We show them what is our experimental thing is. And after this, what's the next step? And so on. So this one take a lot of time for us to do. We also declare what is our machine learning algorithm that we're going to use. So we're going to say we're going to use, we don't use efficiency, we don't use accuracy, we use, ROC. We even tell them we are using SVM method and all these kinds of things for our images to see whichever is best. Okay. Of course, all this can be easily done in using Python. But then again, we want to show that it has a flow there. Okay. And then you say these are all lengthy ones. So when we show on top, right, then they'll start reading. So those people, those panel from the insecticide side will read on those like creating or basically what do you call this? They call it a word here. Creating insecticide. And those that is under the image processing, everything will look into our methodology for the image processing side in detecting the types of mosquito that has been trapped using this. Okay, so once we've written that, we have our beautiful flowchart again uploaded here. So what we did was, we like for example, me and Dr. Ong, we look into the situation of the panel whenever they look at the proposal, and when we look at the proposal, which one we will malas. For example, now, right, if I read up everything has already been given clearly. Maybe I wouldn't want to click on the PDF. This one is just a cukup syarat only because they're already satisfied with the methodology. It's clear enough. Okay, then they'll go for research activities. They just glance through only because we mentioned as detailed as possible, at the same time as infographic or as easy visualization idiom, I should say, as possible. Okay, then all this automatically they see our, of course, all this needs to be revised after you obtain the grant. Okay, so this is the proposal which I will bring later on. Now we want to go for the content of your research, which is basically we start off with our title. So every research title, I mean, some of you all, in fact, most of us have done research in our PhD and all that. But sometimes the research of our PhD is different according to the discipline. But KPT actually has a guideline in a way where they want to find key points only. So these key points, if it's there, tick 5%, the title is fundamental already. The key point here is basically the what, why, and how that you should have in your research. For example, another one thing is that discipline opinion varies. For example, you can go to one seminar for them to talk to you about FRGS, but one of the penceramah will say, jangan letak title sangat panjang. Okay, letak title pendek dan concise and lagi senang untuk pihak pemeriksa baca. Then one you will go in a different discipline like chemical side. They cannot actually reduce it because their combination or the string of their this what you call this reaction also takes like few sentence already. So it is discipline specific lah. But there is a rule like you don't put it like a paragraph, but put it in a way where you have all this what, why, and the how. The what question is the center point of the project lah, or basically the goal. Key question you're going to ask is what the project team is trying to do. Okay, but my what here is I'm telling you is that bringing this key point. What are you doing? Are you developing or not? Some people engineering will say, hey, developing cannot because developing is you doing already, is applied already. But then if you go to social science, they say developing is okay because you're developing a model. Oh, developing a model then can lah. Okay, so this one is subject depending, subject specific. Some keyword engineering cannot use. Some keyword, what do you call this, computing maybe cannot use. We cannot use optimize here, but there you can use optimize. Okay, so the keyword later I will show you also. So we need to have this what, why, and the how lah. So the what here is basically, what are you doing? I am developing. Okay, you ask the same question. You ask yourself, what is this research about? You say that actually this research is, I am developing a model, or I am actually having some theory. You see, the keyword that I mentioned earlier on have to be brought forward. Make sure you say that. Are you developing a model? Are you constructing an equation? Are you doing what? All these things have to be there. This is the what. And then you have the how. How is basically somewhat rather like the methodology side. Like how are you going to do this? Sometimes people say, I'm going to fabricate this. I'm gonna basically do what? Characterize this. I'm gonna, all these kinds of things they're gonna say more on methodology side. And then they have the why. Okay, when you have the why are you doing this? Then you say, I'm doing it for, okay, the for, that's where from there onwards, right, you need to choose this project, right? Once it is done, who will be the best people to give your thesis to, your product or your output to? Who will benefit from this? Another thing is that those that is beneficial, are they in these clusters, SDG, my STIE, are they in that particular point? So when you put all these three together, you already mentioned first, this grant is fundamental. I already mentioned how I'm going to do this because that how will signifies this being my fundamental. And then why am I doing this? I'm doing it for the B40. So B40 goes under where? Under SDG where and all that. So three things is already there already. When you have these three things, 5% is automatically given for you. And from these three things also, they will know that this is fundamental or not. Okay. Sometimes if they sama-sama, they want to give you a chance. They want to see, hey, this one like I pernah dengar, I pernah do, I pernah read somebody else also doing something like this. Let us see, let us read more. So then only they start going to others side. So the what, why, and the how is very, very important. So you ask yourself the what, are we creating a new service and are you creating a new model? Are you modifying certain procedures? How are you implementing the project? Are you doing some implementation? All the points that are given you as the research output, these are the things that you're developing, but more fundamentally rather than applied. So you try to play where everything sounds fundamental than applied. Okay. Then the why is that is more like the emotional element. So why are you doing this for the, I'm saying I'm doing this for the B40 because the beneficial of them. You can ask yourself, why are we undertaking this project? Because at the end, once this is done, this one will be beneficial to this particular group. You can tell your team members that you know what to do every day based on this also, because everything will go on phases also, especially social science also. If you have phases, certain hypotheses where you need to make sure you prove. This one can be, maybe one point where you try to hit it downright lah. Okay. And then the how question, again, I said to complete your work, what you need to do and so on. So this one is as an example here. For example, you see these three titles. This one is actually from my professor's side from the nanotechnology. So his title is this, biological and electrical property study. Study was actually from I think during my early days was actually famous. Everybody, whenever they do ceramah FRGS, they will say, you kena pakai study because study ni dia fundamental. Okay, you jangan pakai this, jangan pakai that and all that lah. But nowadays study, even study also not many people want to use. Even bringing back the fundamental, the term fundamental also not many people want to use. So they go on a different approach lah, using different keywords. So this study highlighted here is basically telling you that what are you doing and also how are you doing it. You are just doing a study. The what part of it are you doing? What is the main research? All these like aromatic amines, all this lah. This one with something that we tak faham punya. Okay, but the panel will faham lah. And then you have the for. Okay, why are you doing this? I'm doing this for the age-related cancer diagnosis, screening and prevention. This one, you have tapped into certain policies and what do you call this, SDGs and all these lah. Okay. Then another one is the surface modification. You are modifying certain existing what do you call this profiles and also a product lah. For example, preparation and surface modification of inorganic nanostructure. This is the what lah. Inorganic nanostructure for biomolecule probe immobilization and hybrid. Then for what? Label-free halal product detection kit. So halal is part of the core in part of these clusters and all this that we saw, right? Then amending is one thing. Phosphate fertilizer with activated carbon. This is the what? All this. Okay. Then for what? To improve phosphorus use of efficiency in acid soils. So you have your what, why, how here lah. Okay. So I'm giving applied. Let us keep lah. We are talking about FRGS. You want to say applied is in the slide that you have. Take a look at it lah. This one is also another one thing I churi from somebody. This one lah, but actually just for our learning. We have these are all the grant title that I think when I saw this for FRGS other, for PRGS also other. So if you look at this, the development of Green Lean Six Sigma model. Fundamental here is model. The what is the Six Sigma, and for what? Malaysian automotive industry. So they have a reference. They're doing it for what? Then another FRGS. This is PRGS, the one. The development of integrated Islamic business engineering practices and performance information tool. Have you noticed the keyword that I put there? Called tool. For what? For Malaysian automotive industry. So this FRGS based on this keyword obtain a grant and so on. Another one, lean healthcare performance improvement tool. For what? Why are you doing this? For Malaysian healthcare industry. So healthcare is part of our clusters also there lah. Then another FRGS in Bahasa lah. So that's why I said Bahasa. So you can actually do. People feel comfortable, they can do. Model. So the first thing is model already. So hit the point, fundamental. Model apa? What? Model pengkomersialan harta intelek dan penyelidikan akademia berdasarkan sinergi linear pursuit. So this linear pursuit, when you see that video, it said is something that the keyword they're going to use in lens.org to see the words is there. Dalam memacu pertumbuhan ekonomi dan kemakmuran. This is the why. Okay, let us go for the next example. So many example here that is in the list line. We go very fast here. Developing. Okay, that is a keyword. E-Millennialpreneur 4.0 education model towards Muslim youth SME success. So got the 4 there. Then model keusahawanan sekolah. Penggerak dasar, this one. For what? And developing a new strategic cybersecurity model for in terms of SMEs lah. Okay, then developing information ecology model. You see the keywords? Basically, right, it's a template already. You can just write, you have a focus, you have a research, you know you're doing it for who. Take one of these example here, turn it into, change the main point, which is yours, for what? And you have yourself a 5% worth of fundamental research grant title, which I know you have a marks there already lah. So you take reference in all these. I have a lot of examples here. Okay. Another one thing, these are the things that we read lah. So for this, you see now we are looking at title and then research objective and research question. So we need to relate that with our title. Hold on. We need to relate this with our title whenever we do our what do you call this, research question and research objective. So for a title, which is this, we know we're doing a model. Keyword here is the linearpreneurship, and for what? For Mamachu, all this, it goes under all these categories lah that they choose. The research question number one, research objective, membina dan mengesahkan model pengkomersialan harta intelektual dan penyelidikan akademia berdasarkan sinergi linearpreneur. Notice that these are all the keywords that always keep bringing forward lah. So they ask them they want to develop a model. Here is then they want to verify their model. Right? If they want to verify the model, the next question is, bagaimanakah pembangunan dan pengesahan model pengkomersialan harta intelek dan penyelidikan akademia berdasarkan. You see that the sentence, right, is more or less the same, but just they change it one from question to become objective. I'm sure all of us that we have done research, right? Our supervisors will basically tell you that don't vary the objective and the question a lot. Whenever you want to objectify something, you ask the question that is related to that and tally them. So if you have 4 research objectives, make sure these 4 research objectives have some tallying research questions also. Okay, because these are the things that form the research objective in the first place. Okay. My personal suggestion is that even after you have all these objectives, your final objective is something that you want to propose. Because a project, you need to propose what? You are proposing at the end your title. Your title is to develop that, right? Develop a model, right? End of the objective is to propose a model of take back your title, put in there. So when the panel reads through that, right, everything is tally. Title, research objective, research question. So I have all those examples here. You can take a look. Senang aja, you just ubah, change it to whatever that is following yours. And all this is tried and tested. And when I saw this, they put together with the grant amount that they got. That means it's not something that they're proposing. It's something that they already submitted and they got a grant. And this is tried and tested lah. So use this for our advantages. Okay, for our proposal. Okay, so one by one lah, you can go through one by one. For example, let us just see one. Developing a new keyword here is a new strategic cyber security model in digital marketing communication. So the what do you call it? The what and the why, the what and the how is there, and the why is for small and medium-sized enterprise SME. So this one got 84,000. How do we build research objective and research question? First, research objective 1, to investigate cybersecurity issues and challenges. You see, cybersecurity issues and challenges are always brought forward there. The keyword does not change every time they bring forward only. Then research question. Instead of them putting what, why don't you put it as a why? So this one is when they're trying to explain, they say that instead of using certain question, why don't you have a fundamental question, which is the why factor, which will hold strong in your research rather than the what lah. Okay, but again, this one is discipline specific. You know your research better. You know your research question better. Don't take this as something that you're gonna carve on stone lah. You just take this as a suggestion. If you want to just or superimpose your title or superimpose your question in those things, by all means, feel free to do that. Okay, so all this is there lah. Okay, I won't go so detailed. There's a lot of examples I've given you all in the slide. Take a look at it one by one. If you have any doubt, maybe you can inquire lah from me. Any lah. Okay. All these are whenever they put here, the meaning the grant is obtained. So those from social science, and all that, you can also refer lah. All right. So now we are looking at the proposal by itself lah. Executive summary, remember our marking rubric is around 10 to 15% and all that. Whatever that you've written in your executive summary, every point of it has a mark. If you see, like this example, the pink color is referenced by first problem statement. You announce your problem statement first, and then you put in some data. For example, even executive summary, so you have few lines of introduction or problem statement, and then some literature review to justify this, and then you go through your methodology that you propose, and then the expected outcome, and where does it hitting or maybe your future recommendation. Some of it, like whenever we do our thesis, we do like this. More or less the same, but just that you follow the sequence according to the MyGrant. They ask you problem statement, then give them some objective, write your research methodology using what technique only. You don't need to be very, elaborative of it. You can just say that you are doing what? Just a quantitative research. Are you doing a qualitative research? Are you doing a mixed method research? And do certain elaboration in terms of your sample size, how many people you want to this one, and expected what do you call this? You can also mention your hypothesis also, no problem, and all that lah. Okay, but finally, this is the most important. Problem has to be there, objective has to be stated, methodology has to be stated. But the key point, the most important, I say that, is your significance of your output, because even if you have that, the problem is sometimes the risk. Of course, the KPT won't have a panel that is very specific to your research. Sometimes no. Sometimes they go like, okay, business, maybe finance, then those in the finance side goes there. But the finance side, sometimes we talk about digital, decentralized financing, maybe incorporating blockchain into finance also. Then they need somebody from that computer science background also to look into the blockchain technology in, perhaps decentralized financing. Okay, so my point is they might not be an expert there, but certain things when they read and they don't understand, but they want to see at the bottom there, your expected output is something that you're tackling the government's aspirasi negara. This is something that they will think, okay, at the end of the day, the researcher managed to streamline, managed to summarize the whole thing. And he is saying that after he or she has developed the model or improved the system and all that, this one can merealisasi certain policy in the government, memperkasa keusahawanan, these are all the what you say, I don't know what to call this, like the words where politician will basically use lah. When I get this, I will do that, I will do this, I will do that, I will do this. When I fabricate my model will be able to improve this, improve that, improve this, improve that. This is the way forward lah. At the end, make sure you put that. Don't only put my result will manage to create a model, and the model has a name which is what lah. But at the same time, put this model will improve. This proposed model will improve the production line, what machine by the addition of this algorithm, which can improve the efficiency or the yield by how many percent. These kind of things lah. Of course, you don't need to put percent lah, so quantitative, because if you cannot promise the amount, then it's quite problematic lah. But you just say it's improved, should be okay lah. Okay. Then after we are done with that, because the top is title, then we go research objective, research question, then we talk about what do you call this, executive summary. Before we go for literature review, let me talk about methodology. Remember, I showed you a proposal of ours where we have a lot of images there. I'm not saying lot lah, few, but it's understandable. But sometimes, right, you want to hit to the point that is actually a problem. So for example, what this researcher actually do is that in his proposal, after he written all that, in the point where he need to explain some introduction, he put a paper clipping. This paper clipping, and then you see sumber Kementerian Pembangunan Usahawanan, infographic bernama it's a validated one because it's newspaper, how they can simply put that? They put all these issues there when they can see these are the main thrust strategic of the country. And my research is actually hitting the point of maybe item number 5 and all that. So when panel looks at your proposal and they see your picture, sometimes they don't read your one, they just read, oh, okay. They get an overview. They get an overview of actually what you're trying to do, they know already. Okay, when reading a methodology, when they don't understand because you think that you explain it as technical as possible so that they don't understand and they feel, wow, this lecturer using so much of sophisticated or bombastic language, surely very good research one. No. The more they don't understand, the more easy they want to reject. Okay, so they want to understand. Because power is in their hand for them to give the marks accordingly. Okay. Then another one also, you can have a background image assistant like this program pendidikan, just to show that these are the things, this is the amount that the government is giving, this is the amount that can be jana, because the proposal that is having is basically more about showing the government is looking at the entrepreneurship part is as a focus. And because of that, these are all the things that the government is doing. The initiative of the government is doing this. And my research is actually now following the pathway of the government to actually do this. So when they see this, they can actually build confidence for the panel. You see, you put all these images here. So in one image, cannot lie, right? Then instead of writing the percentage, you show them in graph. Maybe you want to put a trend. When you put a trend, you write, it is shown that the particular methodology has increased yield by how many percent and so on. But instead of writing that, we just put the percentage of yield has been increased from year what until year what, as shown in the figure, this one. So from here, the panel can see, of course, you have a verified information. You take a clipping, you have a reference here, Cybersecurity Malaysia, and it looks that the trend is actually, or the particular incident is actually increasing, which means there is a call for national security. There is a call for more funding on cybersecurity. Okay, so part of the kind of frauds and also cases for what you call this cybersecurities are all these to justify your claim. Images is the best, but because of that, don't crowd the one with images, because again, this system has a tough time bringing in images. So if you already have an image there, one time you bring the image, always make sure you click on the preview section. Every box that you write your information, at the top right hand side, you always have preview. So when you click on preview, that's the layout that you will see, or that's the layout the panel will see of your writings. Okay, so before submitting to PGRC or to panel also, you need to make sure that you have an overview of how your proposal looks like. Is the figure, for example, figure 1, is this the first figure or not? Like previously you added some figure, but in your proposal, is this the first figure or not? If it is, then the next figure is figure 2. All these are, I know it's simple formatting. I know some of you is telling that, yeah, we know, obviously we did PhD, but we know all this. But the reason I'm telling is because when I see proposal, they don't follow these kinds of things as well. Not all, there are 1 or 2 don't follow. So when they don't follow and they submit to us, the next thing I can do is just submit to them, ask them to improve this, because I don't want to submit to panel. Otherwise, when panel recommend and they improve, goes back to panel. I try to limit the instance it goes to the internal panel, so that one time settle, recommend, then it's my job only. Once I settle my job, then it's just between me and researcher, then settle. Okay. For methodology, so make sure you have it stated explicitly. Give an overall summary of the research design and methodological approach. Provide the methodology for each specific objective. For example, like I said, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Like I said, some people likes to have like a methodology and some short form words there because they have P1, T1-41 and all that. Every hypothesis is linked with a particular name. Every objective is named with a particular name. When it goes to methodology, they mention that when they have completed this, those methodology, those research questions, those hypotheses is being addressed by them doing this methodology. By them using this method, not methodology, by them using this method. Okay, so describe the specific design. What will they do and how number of replicates and so on. The number of replicates will also means the number of samples you're going to reiterate or the number of samples that you're going to test also is very important. The materials, the techniques that will be used. Use sophisticated method. Of course, some techniques has a name, right? Like, chi-square, where does it skew, P, polynomial equation. Like if you use SVM, you can use a decision tree, SVM, decision tree, many things like you can use also for methods. So when you use that particular term, you don't need to really elaborate, but just that you just need to mention why you choose those particular algorithm or kernels or so on, because this particular thing is tried and tested by other literature based on their comparison of efficiency or ROC and so on. Then you need to show the feasibility of this technique. Also use literature review to support design, materials and techniques. Sometimes when you write methodology, people will ask you that why are you trying this? Why don't you try the other one? Why try this method? This method normally it will not be tried by these kinds of research. They normally try this because panel will tend to think that way. These are professors that we're dealing with. The professors they know basically their research is trying this, but justify why you need to try that. Okay, so the only way you can testify or justify is by using certain literature review that claiming by using this methodology or this method, normally the yield or the result can be obtained easily or clearly, or these can be validated, or these are the standard that follows certain maybe IEEE standards and so on, or SIRIN standard or ISO standard and all these kinds of things. Okay, again, like I showed, if you don't want to write, you can actually do something like this. Very beautiful. Fasa 1, fasa 2, fasa 3. Tahap 1 of fasa 1, tahap 2 of fasa 2. Then tahap 3, tahap 4. So under tahap 1, what you need to do? Under this, tahap 1 for this, it goes under here. Very nice image as is. The one time you see, it clears objective 1. So fasa 1 of methodology clears objective 1. Fasa 2 clears objective 2. Fasa 3 clears objective 3. So I don't need to say anything. Whenever I see this, I know that, oh, these are the things that the researcher is going to do. I have a flow chart, and I have it in color code. So these are visually assist certain color codes, sometimes this one you call it as a tree map also got or maybe you can do like a heat map, to show them that once this is done, it's kind of like a checklist. Fasa 1, tahap 1, carta aliran 1 and all that done. Then from here timeline, 10% finish. If this is done, 20% finish. Then this whole fasa finish means 30% of the overall project finish. Go to fasa 2. Then progressively 50% finish. Then 60%. Then subsequently 100%. So it's nice. Every color, like for this particular proposal also, every color has an indication. Like maybe this color code goes to which hypothesis, wherever they already completed this one. Okay, so it's nice also. Same like this you can do it like this. Something like this also. These are visual based visual aids visual idioms they call it, to help us to what you call feel this research and understand what they're trying to do. Okay, something like this also. Sequential design, maybe you're doing, choose the right shape also. Each shape represents what, you are doing qualitative, then you're doing quantitative, then interpret result. This one can help also. If some of you are not very good in doing this, ask a co-researcher or somebody's help to help you all to visualize your methodology. Okay. We use these kinds of example only, like me and Dr. Ong, we come out with these kinds of things. So even to finalize all these, our idea is that we don't want to bore them with reading. Okay, we want them to see first. So if they can see from step by step, those expert in insecticide can actually understand our methodology here in that perspective. Those who are looking in the machine learning side can understand the model that we want to use here. So from that, when we combine both together, we can actually tell them how we expect our iterations or how we expect our model to be all that. So visualization is actually one good suggestion from me okay, for to your. So something like this also you can do one by one. This one, most of y'all will be doing something like this last. Go step by step. But I will take a little bit of effort. Like every part of the box indicate certain action plan there and when you have indicate that, always map that to objective. And also some people goes into the point where which policy they are addressing accordingly. So very specific but very clear. Save time, easy to the eyes to read Okay, so these are all in the slide. Please take a look and you can use it for yourself. The importance of planning before applying for grant. So these are the things that you really need to do. Even before writing for a grant, you need to already plan already. So of course, what you need to plan. You need to be clear on what you want and don't want. Because when I talk to researcher, they want to do a lot of things. But actually, we need to narrow down. We need to have a scope. We need to, and in fact, right, the narrow down part, right, when after we bring the proposal to something that is good, they will see that part of the other proposal, actually, you can write many other fundamental grants. Maybe you can help your colleagues. You want to apply, but you only can apply one. Maybe you want to help your colleagues to apply the second one. Use the other colleague name to apply for third one. So when we look into that, actually, when you want to do so many, the panel also have a question like, why are you doing so many? The amount of money going to be given to you is going to be less, and you're going to take one master student. If that master student going to do that project, it is not even a master level; it's a PhD level already. So these are the comments that the panel normally give. Okay, so narrow your scope. Go to maximum 3 to 4 objectives. Even the 4 also, the one I mentioned is to propose the model already. So go to 3 objectives. And all these 3 objectives, they break it down to methodology, link it with research question and hypothesis and all this, so that you have a bundle there. Okay, so you have to be clear on what you want to do. In other words, narrow down what you want to do. Don't overpromise your output also. Clear on who you want or don't want. Don't want, okay what I mean by don't want is like, nowadays, right, it goes in a way where the FRGS is in a way you need to describe the role of the members. And those members, right, has to support the research. So for example, you do a project in engineering, and then you do something about electrical, but then you have somebody from the bio side inside. Not to say, from panel's point of view, can see maybe not relevant, but then why is the person inside? So maybe you justify, he is an expert in this, and part of the research is needing some knowledge in bio. But if it's that if they are not relevant, right? Sometimes this is an issue. You remember, there's a mark for the composition of team member. So the marks is there for those people who are relevant. If they're not relevant, at least in the discipline, then I would suggest you all, this one is not the kawan tolong kawan kind of method for you to do like how you do for paper and all that. Don't do this for grant. So have the right people in. Since that discipline is not relevant, so these are the people that you don't need to add. Now, who to add? Those people that you add, right? First thing is, should be somebody that can support your project, and let the panel think like this. Okay, the main researcher never apply for grant, never got grant, maybe handle internal grant, but for 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 only. Let us look at co-research. Hey, co-researcher, oh, this professor very good. This professor has applied for a lot of grant. I know him. He's a celebrity. We call it celebrity researcher. Those who have published a lot of papers are very expert in that field and all that. So these are the people that you want to be inside your proposal. Okay. And when you want them to have, of course, you need to ask their permission lah. And you need to discuss with them lah to build network, to tell that you are currently applying in that. These people can help amplify with their name speaks louder than your proposal sometimes. Okay, so adding them in can show that, oh, okay lah, you have some guidance there, even though you never lead, but this professor is a top or the main researcher for this field. Definitely can help you one. And the university, the professor has a lot of equipment, so very easy the PI to go and do all the experiment, very easy. Okay. Then clear on how will you do it. How is always about your methods lah. Basically, where to approach to get your material, who is the vendor that is selling this material, how much is the cost, how much is the tax, what equipment is available in which university, how much is the rental for that particular equipment, who do I approach to assess this particular material or machines. And then, for example, if I want to travel here, travel there and all that, how do I do that? What mode of transportation would I be using? Which place I will be using as my experiment? So these one have to be very clear, because at the end of the day, when you translate all this into costs, you'll get an idea of actually the amount you are expecting is too much for the research that you're doing. So finally, you'll work your way to reduce the scope, reduce the sample, and your fundamental project can be something adequate enough. And later on, you can apply for other grants also. Okay. Prepare for contingency plan. This one go back to your risk. What happens? Remember, I put all the list there. Think about it. What happens if on my project you got like this? You happen to have the same scenario that what I faced previously. Prepare for contingency plan. If no product A, go for product B. If no product C, go to product D and all that. But this contingency plan is not something that you want to add in the proposal. You don't go and say in the proposal that if this one don't have, I'm going to use this. No, you're going to be straightforward, but you keep a backup that whatever price that I'm adding here, if this product is not there, I can actually use an alternative, which is also relevant. So that it's not so hard for me under the vote for you to do some changes. Okay, this one will be hard for me. Okay, to do changes for the votes lah. Okay, and then yes, able to deliver result on time is the key essence lah. For project for 2 years, if you don't deliver the result on time without any conflict lah, that means like for example 2020 COVID, 2019 was the COVID time in other places. Then 2020 COVID hit us, MCO and all that. KPT actually extended the duration for our staff, 6 months to a year. They actually extended almost a year. And then after that, additional 3 months they extend because of the announcement of you cannot, MCO and all that. So because of that, project got affected, cannot go and do experiment and all that. So these kinds of things, no issues. But issues in terms of you delaying, your project is delayed because of your ill management, or you never manage a project properly, your student never finish on time, you apply for a vote this amount, then suddenly not enough. Now you want to ask to maybe take this vote and put here. That is not easy. Even PGRC cannot do anything. Any change of vote from this amount, take and put here. They say, Viraman, you need to ask KPT approval. Within vote is my jurisdiction. That means, for example, if you have vote 21,000, you put travel local 5,000, travel international maybe 5,000. But then suddenly you find that you want to travel international is 7,000. Within the vote, easy to adjust because the amount has been dedicated to the vote. But between vote is a big trouble. Big trouble whereby we need to send a letter to Mohi. We need to ask the people there to evaluate and rationalize with the reason that we give why we want to change the vote, and then get their approval, and then only internally we can do through the system. If those items that you never prepare in the grant, after you get the grant, then suddenly you say, hey, I forgot to put this. Now can I take some money from that and put here? That one I myself can tell cannot, because KPT will tell cannot also. So whichever amount of money you never plan properly, you never put it in the vote, I will have trouble also. You ask the researcher that got the grant, whenever they approach me and they ask to do this, I will kena marah from KPT lah, because I'll call, I'll write an email. Their answer is downright tak boleh. Especially you touch the RA students' money to put for all the other things, can. Another one thing, paying less than what you're supposed to pay. For example, you're supposed to pay 2,000, but maybe you say you pay 1,000 for two students. Okay lah, good. Sometimes KPT allow that also. But then again, the your deliverables will be double already, because two master student, the output should be something equivalent of a 3 years project lah. Okay, so always do a check and balance and deliver the result on time. Another one thing we call the on time. So what do KPT define on time? You finish your project means, what does it mean? It means that your student already submit thesis and already viva, already finish examination, get pass. The thesis submission is the on time. That means within 2 years, thesis submission needs to be there. Paper publication needs to be 2. IP at least have to be some work of you getting some novelty search already lah. That is what KPT defines as on time. Meaning 2 years means 2 years everything has to happen. Okay. But that being said, of course, this is ideal case lah. Practical case sometimes not the same. Like at least for now, 2 years master, because of COVID, certain project delay and all that. So we extend. So these kinds of things sometimes cannot avoid. Those cannot avoid, we can actually write to KPT and they will accept. They are okay. They are good to accept. But those things in the Dana Urus Setia, Dana Urus Tadbir, the grant penyelidikan, the one that whatever doesn't follow that, they do not entertain lah. They will just say cannot. So all this is very important also, and many other things like which I think you can actually ask those who have already obtained the grant to share with you. All right. So funds distribution, of course, definitely you need to be realistic. Whatever fund that you have allocated, propose, you need to make sure that it is realistic lah. For example, you want to buy certain material, it shouldn't be more than what is quoted lah. Okay. Consistent with the research activities. Like I said, you put travel expenses, go Penang, go everywhere else. Consistent with that. You want to go to KL, everything. Travel expenses has to be enough for that. You want to go to one local, one international conference. The travel for local and international has to be there. You want to submit journal. The journal information has to be there. You want to pay for conference fee has to be there. Okay. You already want to have master student 2 years. Don't change to PhD. Take master student, because PhD requirement is different as compared to master. Okay. Be transparent. Don't sugarcoat or don't be hiding anything, because one thing I realize, I see our researcher here is, of course, I think it's because of the internal grant fear that after you apply, normally after our IEC meeting, we deduct the amount. So what they think is that when they apply for FRGS, they also start to be berjaga-jaga to apply. That being said, is one good and one bad is that this one is actually coming from the Ministry of Higher Education. They allow you up to 250,000. So you have from the level of 60,000 to until 100,000 for you to apply lah. Okay, so you can actually put in a lot of amount of things that you need for your research. Okay, so yeah, be bold and put the amount, but realistic amount. Don't put the non-realistic one lah. Within guideline to avoid rejection of grant proposal. Number 4 is you can avoid because Nowadays, MyGrants system comes automatically. You need to just change the ringgit accordingly. If it's go higher, then your what do you call this? Your grant proposal gets flagged to red color, which also means you cannot go to the next step. You need to revise to make sure the allocation is that accordingly. So this is automated for you all right? And number 5, strategically writing in a way that assessors can slash out. Assessors can't slash out the amount requested. Meaning like what? You have sample amount. You say you want to do 20 sample, but by default 10 sample is enough for you to draw a conclusion. So you say you want to do 20, but panel know 10 is enough. The next 10 can be deleted lah. So budget can be reduced from that. But then if you put 10, and of course panel no, I cannot reduce to 10 because the SI or the standard say for this amount of, for this research or for this standard, they require 10. So then obviously they cannot reduce the sample size because 10 is the maximum already. Sorry, 10 is the ideal case already. So you write in a way where panel try to reduce the amount of money they slash. So that's why when you go to your proposal, you see your methodology. When you do one to another, everything when it has this continuity, slashing one amount of money from one component can actually jeopardize the whole methodology. So let them know when they are doing that without telling them. Okay, so that is how you need to write your proposal so that they don't slash accordingly lah. But that being said, so whenever you whatever, even you want to slash or don't want to slash, they should only slash lah. So my advice is at least for first time applicant, apply up to maybe 90K to 100K lah. Don't go overboard lah. 100K for social science and science also go 100K lah. Social science also sometimes can go below, maybe 80K, 90K. So they will definitely slash. At least you have a balance of maybe 70, 80 lah. But then if you want to go a bit higher lah, you think this one, of course the material also is high, then go 120, 130 the max lah. Then when they reduce, at least 100K we get lah. 100K we get also sometimes more than enough for our research actually. Okay. Then component of the FRGS proposal. So this one we are going to the FRGS proposal already. We're going to glance through very, very fast lah. So of course you have your title of your proposed research, which I show you all, your detail of your researchers and your co-researchers, research information such as the area of your research, location, the duration, which I shown you all, your data of your profile, which shows your previous project, your publication, and so on. And then C starts with executive summary of your proposal. And then C and D is your content, the body of your proposal really, which comprise of research project, background, hypothesis, all this. And finally, after that is your research budget. But in between, you'll have pattern search, risk management, project collaboration. Okay. Okay, research proposal versus research assessment. This is what I was telling you all. Many trainings or what, if you go also, they will basically use this also. This is the entire item in your, what do you call this, proposal. Okay, this is the entire item. But what external panel actually starts to read or start to see whether their time or your proposal fits their time or not. Don't waste their time. They will see your title, they will see your executive summary, they will see your problem statement, they will see your research question. If they're convinced, then they'll start reading all the other things. First 2, 3, 4, if they're not convinced, these marks also, if they take out from the marking rubric, you're already lesser than 80%. So already less than 80%, they don't need to see your budget, expected result, and all that. This is straight going to the gutter. Okay, it's being rejected already. All right, so make sure the point that is mentioned here, the red color one where assessors are actually seeing, is your stronghold. So when the panel feel that your proposal, they want to read further, then only they go for research information, your background, okay, because just to fulfill the marking rubric. Research background say must have all the references. So they read they say, okay, all these references are there. Tick, 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 full mark. If they are convinced with all those rate, they know that you are in the recommendation region. Now they want to give you a highly recommendation. So highly recommendation is all the other things lah. Okay. A resume and brief CV is actually something that optional. You don't necessarily need to upload that. But if you want to upload also, no problem. But you don't waste time because your profile in your MyGrant is the CV already. So you upload CV also, they won't read. Appendices, they will see. Quotations that you add, they will see. To see your budget, tally or not. Another one thing very important. Even if your proposal is very beautiful, very nice, follow everything. Your budget gone means also they will reject one because sometimes they want to see whether realistic or not. Sometimes the proposal is nice, but the budget is not even capturing that. You say you want to do certain places, but you're not putting any travel expenses. You say you need this sample, but the chemical you're not buying. You say you want this particular glass or coating or maybe the ITO glass or something like that for you to fabricate, but you never put in maybe titanium oxide material or what for it. So these are the things that they will tally. If it's not there, even your proposal good also, if I give you the money is seems like not enough for your proposal. And I bet they won't say that, oh, this proposal very good, so we give him extra money lah. No such thing. It's all about you earn for the proposal or something like that. Okay. Then literature review lah. This one again, you are supposed to know this lah. Literature review is about what? But for grant-based literature review is you have to make sure that a problem is being highlighted, the research gap is being identified, the references are being the recent references, and also some what do you call this trainers also will be telling you that don't add one reference, add few reference to make sure your whatever you claim is concrete. Okay, so discipline specific one also should be okay, because if you can prove that it's recent, then it's relevant already lah. Okay, so in your literature review you put in lah, like which researcher took the initiative to start off with this particular project, what was the problem faced, what was the research gap faced by that research. You start to finalize that by doing a literature review, but don't do a literature search lah. Okay, you have to understand the difference between a search and a review. Of course, I think most of us know a search is just, you just want to get like the chronology of that particular research, some introduction, just paste. So it's nothing to critically, you're not critically reviewing the gaps of the existing research. That's why, for example, if you have your lens.org document or your patents there, right, you need to critically say that these are all the things that is available, but the focus is different. My focus, my research is going on a different perspective, which is an uncharted territory. No one ever go there before. I'm bringing this particular methodology, which may be employed in other regions of the research, but for this aspect, it was never ventured. Prove that lah. So then these are your literature review to say those relevant people in the expert in those methodology, but they are always focused in their group or their research or their discipline. They never try to venture. Okay. Another one key point is ministry likes multidisciplinary based project, meaning to say that they like you have like maybe people from business side looking at engineering looking at business side, computing looking at business, or engineering looking at communication side. These kinds of multidisciplinary is the much sorted proposal. The reason why is because you notice that they have this FRGS and MPRGS and all that other TRL. Apart from that, you can see they have TRGS, they have LRGS. TRGS, LRGS are all fundamental, but they are big grants. One involve multi-department, that means multidisciplinary research, like one department within the institution, engineering business must have some research, so they apply TRGS. Then within, not within, few institution, that means like UOW here and then UKM, UM, some other university collaborate, apply for LRGS. So if now itself you have this small or fundamental multidisciplinary based research, you are looking for future to expand. So when you expand them, these are the grants for you to go for lah. You set your pathway for that. Don't sit in a silo and always focus on your own thing only. Try to branch out, look at other disciplines as well. All right. So another one thing is this the first phase of the project or continues or an activity already started? Why I'm saying this is because sometimes you can also look at projects from thesis, from some thesis which is in your field, like some of them at the end of the thesis, they'll put a future recommendation. Those future recommendation is something that you want to take to do. Those are the ideas that you can actually take where the thesis maybe is a latest one. It would have done its own literature review and find the gap, but then it has a certain amount of research where you plan to continue with that. So there's not wrong in doing that, just that maybe you can collaborate with the main researcher to say that you want to collaborate with him, but to apply the grant at this institution. So same thing like networking. What have been the main result of the previous studies? What studies have been done? Who else operates and contribute in these fields? All this has to be there lah. Do provide citation to claim or to justify all the claim, because this one is actually being sorted by the panel. I know when I discussed with one of the lecturers that is actually writing a proposal, the lecturers told me that the previous proposal, the panel actually highlighted, say that whatever you click the lecturer claim, the panel put a bracket and say, do you have a justification on this or not? Okay, which also means that, but the problem is that I don't know whether, because he was looking for citation in executive summary, so which is not common for most people to actually write citation at that particular column lah. Normally literature review you write that, but again my concern is these are the things that is being taught by the panel. So always justify your claim. All right, so this one is quite common because if you're doing a fundamental, you're trying to create another branch from an existing branch. So you should see literature review and literature search in this way. So literature search is something like all this is existing, but it's not involving you. Literature review is about something that you find a pathway from existing research until you find a gap and create a new branch. This blue color is supposed to be you, your research. Okay, so again, good research do not exist in isolation. Your research should be logical extension of past research. Research objective, of course, you follow the SMART. It should be short, clear, straightforward. You know how to write research objective. I don't want this to be a research methodology class. Of course, it should be having all the main criteria. And later on, I will show you the fundamental objective that normally you write down there. Okay. So number 2, list the main objective. Number 3, make sure it is realistic and achievable within 2 years. That means don't put so much of an objective. Not too many comes to number 4. Number 5, must reflect in scope and fundamental aspect of the research to be performed. Okay, so these are the things that you have to, writing paper, writing thesis, writing grant, more or less the tier or the method is the same. But for when you are writing for grant, right, you need to focus on first the grant, what is it, the spirit of the grant lah. Normally when you go to KPT, you say everything has a spirit. Why this thing was done is because of the intention of the spirit to provide grant for this purpose. When you go to meetings in KPT lah, if you go, right, actually Malaysia is looking to form its very first Nobel laureate. That's a fundamental idea there. Our Nobel laureate is still not there, someone from Malaysia. So they want to have a Nobel laureate. So this is why fundamental grants come into place, because fundamental goes into the category of Nobel laureate for at least for the science, physics and all that lah. Okay. All right. So coming to research objective, these are some of the to tell you this is yes or no, I cannot. But these are all extracted from existing grants that have actually received money lah. For example, if you talk about fundamental, your objective should be to what? To investigate, to understand, to analyze. Again, depending on subject matter lah. Like engineering and all that, we can use this. Sometimes business cannot use. Sometimes computing cannot use. So depend on your subject specific. But again, right, my point is basically to look at all those keywords. It doesn't say to fabricate, to create, to what to model, but in the sense of hardware kind of model lah. It's not a model of policy and so on. Okay, so these keywords has to be taken into account lah. You can also use Bloom some of the Bloom's keywords lah, but these Bloom keywords you need to make sure that it goes on maybe the lower order rather than the higher order. Not much of a development lah. The higher order one you can go analysis, synthesize also maybe can, all these kinds of things also. Smart objective is something quite common for all of us. I will just skip this. Expected result. So yes, a lot of researcher comes normally tell us is that what is the level of expected result? Because there's two perspectives. One perspective is that normally research grant that people apply, they already do it early on. So they just want to recreate that, then they apply the research because they know what is the expected result. So some panel will tell you that if you have already have internal grant, then you already finished the project, you have a result. This is the result that you want to use to see that it can actually prove your hypothesis. Okay, so that's one school of thought. Another one is of course downright saying, no, we never done the research before, no result. But you can actually predict the result. For example, some people will want to do the fabrication part to prove the result. But this result will tend to go back to the fundamental of their theory. Some people will do the simulation part of it. After using the simulation, they put in some data and show that from simulation, they obtain this way. And it shows it is optimized and all that. So now they want to prove the theory by using hardware. So when using hardware, that's why some hardware work is involved, some money is involved. So they use some initial data for the research. But that being said, I won't recommend you to put the full result there and you mislead or basically you create an impression from the examiner saying that, hey, based on what you've written there, it shows that you have done the grant, you've done the work, you've done the research, the result is there. Why you need the grant? And no joke, because we have a panel actually giving that kind of remark to us because our researcher actually put in like we have already get some we put it as preliminary research, but the examiner thought it as a complete research lah. Preliminary data lah we put in there, but they thought that since you already have preliminary data, from this data you actually means that you have some hardware done prior to you applying here. So why you need the money and all that lah. So that one will reduce the mark in your rubrics and will put you in the region of not recommended. Okay, so however, you need to have some idea lah, about what kind of data you will have or be collecting and what statistical procedure you will use in order to answer your research question or test your hypothesis. Okay, then after you write, of course, the proposal you have to write. That's the most thing you need to write. Another one thing is that plan your proposal in a way where it has symbols that can link between from the start until the end, like symbols of research. Hypothesis, normally I see people, the social science, we normally put as H1, H2 until H10, for example. Then this H can actually go back to the methodology, maybe M1, M2, M3. Then objective 1, maybe O1, RO1, RO2. Then research question have the number. So this short form, right, can actually be brought together as an overview or like a summary of your research, whereby if the panel is looking at it like just now I saw, the overall research can actually be easy for him to understand. If he understand, then he knows what you're doing. He can actually surrender and say, yes, it is a fundamental project. Now let us look at other aspects, because the first from title until your proposal, you got the highest mark already lah, because you are in that region. Okay. Then milestone and all that, of course, definitely these are all project planning. plan your milestone accordingly. When you plan your milestone and also you plan your research activity, always remember to leave a buffer for I would always advise researchers to leave a buffer for delay. For example, right, once you get your grant, right, definitely you cannot get RA on the spot. You need to go and headhunt, you need to go and advertise, you need RA. That one can take 3 to 6 months, you know. In fact, some of us took 1 year to get research assistant, mainly because very few people wants to do masters, even though it's funded. Because compared to going to work 2,000 plus a year and getting paid 2,000, some people don't see the need to do masters also, and even though being paid. So we had difficulty for that. So in that being said, normally when you have your uh, progression, you add in 10, 20, 50 until 100. That progress, the first point maybe you do the headhunting part lah, employment of GRA. So that one may be taking you 6 months. You just do 6 months only because sometimes it's difficult to have. And then literature review, and then you're doing some modeling, some simulation work, because you leave the time for you to buy the hardware, buy the equipment, buy the chemical. So you buy time. Also, when you buy time, whenever your research assistant get hired, the whole progression gets counted into your progress report. When your whole thing gets counted, your opportunity to apply for the next grant in the following year, the following end of the year will be higher lah. Because if you are a PI for a grant, unless if you have completed 75% of the grant, you cannot apply for the next grant. Okay, so in order for you to apply for the next grant, you need to make sure you finish at least 75%. So the way you write your 75% is always in your progress report, where KPT will always announce lah. It will always be around February and August. Every 6 months you need to write. Whenever you write that, you need to put a progression number. So that progression indicate whether you are in progress or behind schedule. RMC or PGRC will actually label you if you are behind schedule. We need to put a behind schedule. But when you are in behind schedule, we need to indicate action plan, meaning that why are you delayed? What is your action plan? So more work for researcher if you are behind schedule. Okay. So these are all simple way of write a milestone lah. I would suggest put in finding for research assistant, and then maybe doing some what do you call this, pre-testing on certain data, and also maybe doing your purchase of equipment. So buy time there lah, at least give around 6 months. Then after 6 months only actually you can get all the things with you to start your research also. All right. Then these are all examples of milestone lah. Okay, let me see where am I now. All right, so basically I'm nearing the end already lah. Okay, but let me show you this, and I want to show you the grant proposal that we have also, one example. Okay, before that, let us continue with this first. So examples of milestone is something like this, and automatically this is not you do. In MyGrant, you just need to set. When you set your timeline starting from 1st of September for a 2 years project, that will automatically be set up for you so that if you go anything over, it will turn red color, and you need to address until you complete lah. And you need to make sure that each of the timeline follows subsequent. So if you have your methodology written as phase 1 P1, make sure you bring P1 is equals to what, from what duration to what duration. This is more about formatting and also making it tidy lah. Okay. Grant flow chart, you can follow something like this lah. These are all the things. Reference and citation. Definitely this is also important. In fact, if you ask me, this is also some key point for FRGS to the reason why it fails lah, because it is not relevant. Of course, we know research, if it's more than 5 years, sometimes it's not relevant for certain, because emerging technologies grows very fast. Technology grows very fast, and research fields sometimes become obsolete already. So make sure the reference that you do is relevant. Okay, it's relevant to your project, and those references or journals that you take, These are the journals where you want to critically review and find the research gap, where your research from here starts to, you embark on your research lah. And definitely, I will always tell, or of course, some of y'all will argue, not say argue lah, will say 10 years also okay, but then no, 10 years is very long lah. 5 years. If now this is 2022, at least 80% of your reference must be from 5 years. Because some fundamentals normally takes a long time for you to, just tell the fundamental of the theory to come and reference from 1967 like that is okay. One or two is okay. But most of it is like 2000. You will notice that 2010 also is old already now lah. Okay, 2012, 2013 is also 2012 is also old already because it's still fresh for us, right? 2012. But then it's already old. If you say 10 years back, it's still old. So go more than that lah. 5 years back, 2019, 18, 17. Okay, done. Okay. Then number 4, to justify, identify research gap. This one, even from our masters and PhD or so, most of the time we need to identify the gap lah. And these kinds of gap is of course one thing justifiable for the research to be conducted. But anyhow, whatever you do needs to go back to your research clusters, the government aspirations, and what the government is actually following currently, which is the MySDIE, the Sustainable Development Goal, and also the Shared Prosperity Vision. Okay. Another one thing to highlight for supervisors who are actually supervising postgraduate students, MQA has also mentioned that when you are doing your, when you are guiding your postgraduate students, their thesis should address SDG. This one mandatory. So whatever output that you're going to create and whatever conclusion you're going to say, or maybe perhaps you want to mention in your literature review side also, you need to incorporate SDG inside them. So which part of the SDG that you can address or manage to, or you can increase the data in Malaysia in terms of what part of the SDG, you need to mention that in your thesis also, because this is mandatory for program accreditation. So that being said, that's the reason why nowadays grants also, you see it has this entrepreneurial thought, it has this SDG inside. But additionally, they have this MySDIE just to address mostly people. And also they have the shared prosperity vision just to address maybe politician lah. Just joking. Okay, just to address our budget actually. All right. Okay, so why do grants fail? Yes, many reasons why grant fail. Some of the comments sometimes why do grants fails is comment from panel is objective not clearly spelled out. They don't understand. Not in proper order, not directly linked to any hypothesis, cannot be measured. So this one main problem, they are not linked. They cannot say a continuity between all the research objective, hypothesis, research question, methodology, haywire. Literature review does not raise the research issue, no gaps found with regards to the suggested approach. Apart from the literature, the research proposal that is not entirely related to all the SDG also can be rejected, because even the proposal can be written beautiful, everything is tidy, budget is tidy, but they cannot see the reason to give you the money, because after they give you money, what are you going to do with the research to address all that? You can say you are addressing that, but they cannot really say that, okay, I give you money, but you will give me this output that will achieve those SDGs and so on. Okay. Because of that, sometimes we will have researchers. For example, even in 2020, we have 2 to 3 proposals where the panel didn't comment anything bad about the proposal. The panel just say something like they cannot link the project to existing whatever that the Malaysian we are aspiring to become. They cannot relate. So no problem in the research, but the research by itself is a comment. They cannot give you the grant because of that. So for that, you just improve to make sure you tackle all that MySDE and all this. Okay, so I'll be repeating this because that's the point. STIE, shared prosperity vision, and so on. Number three, methodology inadequate, too brief, not properly described. So they cannot grasp your methodology. For methodology, only you need all those things you put it in your budget. So if this is not clear, how do they give you amount of money? Because they don't know which part of the budget you're using. Project coverage is limited. I think goes back to the previous example that I said, which is they cannot relate this to anything. Proposal good, but cannot relate. Scope too ambitious. Scope too ambitious. Okay. Guilty as charged. One of my grant when I was in Unimap got rejected by KPT because I over promised. But my intention was actually to publish a lot. I know I can publish a lot from the data obtained. But what went there is that since I want to publish in maybe conferences and also journal, they are saying that I want to travel a lot. So I'm just using the grant as an example to travel to different country. So that is my early days when I start to learn how to write grants and all that. So too ambitious scope, too much promise, don't over promise. If they say two, if possible, just two. Don't say three, even though if you can. If you can, put it in your final report that you have published more than what you promised, so that your next application, they will look back at your profile, they will look back at your portfolio, they will look back at your trail, your achievement, and then they say this researcher have produced more than what we have normally given her. So him or her. So it'll be a right thing to do to give the researcher a grant. Okay. Then seven, no coherent research plan. Doesn't follow, doesn't synchronize. The grant is all about synchronizing from the top until the bottom, and everything is being captured as what the Malaysian aspires to be, as what the grant holder wanted the grant to uh, look like, or basically feel like, and so on and so forth. Okay. Number eight, no fundamental because proposal is at exploratory level. This one quite common. We tend to put it as fundamental, but most of our methodology looks applied. We say that at the end of the day, we want to create a theory, create an equation and all that. But most of our methodology is more about hardware fabrication and nothing to do with mathematical modeling based on the data obtained from hardware and simulation. So they cannot really relate to it being fundamental due to the methodology being purely applied. All right. Then number nine, no fundamental element, not leading to new theory model idea. These keywords, nowhere from your grant output, you're going to provide this. No new finding. This one basically the panel knows that this research is basically obsolete. Maybe he or she is one of the expert in that area, and whatever you're proposing is something old. Okay, so they cannot really say that I want to give you for something old because you are not updated. Okay, so no new finding, common application based on research. Okay, so it's just common. Proposal does not discuss the novelty and fundamental aspect that differentiate it from the previous work. So no way of you finding the gap in your literature review for you to do your research, the fundamental research. 12 does not highlight the significance of output of the study. And then technology is already well established. What more can you do? Maybe, for example, if you talk about applied research, and somebody wants to do a nurse following robot, applied research. Nurse following robot has already been evolved into something that is not even using sensor, but just using satellite data and also image processing to detect pathway already. And there's no more following that black color line and all that. So this technology that is following based on sensor is no more there for even autonomous vehicle also. So, okay, so then the technology is already changed, evolved. So you are still proposing that zaman purba kind of methodology lah, okay? Then 14, proposal lacks research element. This one downright, the proposal is not good lah. But this one normally won't reach to KPT because in PGRC level, it is not recommended by panel. Of course, it just stays here lah. Grant funds are limited. Researchers is required to apply for more challenging grant. 15 is something that we used to receive also. Meaning to say that's why we have better proposal than our proposal. Our proposal is nothing wrong, but instead of but because of limited funding by KPT, they think that there are many other grant applicants who deserve to be funded as compared to this proposal. This one happens lah. If this one happens, it's actually kind of good because you just thinking you can improve this in a way. Just put new citation, apply for next semester, next call for the grant, okay, which is next year lah. Okay, then we are nearing our end here lah. Okay, wait, let me see. Ethical statement: researcher undertaking any form of fundamental research using animal or people have to submit a proposal to either the Animal Ethics Committee or the Human Ethics Committee for approval before the data gathering can begin. Everybody who has applied the grant will know that once before you submit to PGRC, this is a statement that you need to click if you are having an ethical issue here. Not you are having ethical issue. Your research have an ethic concern, meaning that you are experimenting on either animal or human or any life, of course, any life beings lah. Okay, so if you're doing that, then you need to have an ethical committee to evaluate the proposal and get the ethical committee's remarks to be added into the FRGS. Okay, they need to see the institution form an ethical committee to look into the proposal. Okay, before the data gathering is begin or before the project is started. Like some of y'all that's going to distribute survey questionnaire, and that one don't go into a severe ethics lah. But then still you are now, at least for this time now, if you are resorting to go and form a focus group or doing a more like a qualitative research and interviewing people and all that, there are risks involved because COVID and all that. If you're traveling and all that, you are prone to getting infected and all that. So these are the things that maybe for now we need to look at lah. But not necessarily this one goes to ethical committee. But this one is we understand lah, that the seriousness is that until now KPT never put that travel restriction or infections, diseases and all that into consideration. But we expect that moving forward, these are all the things that will be brought forward to the policy lah. Okay. All right. The do's and don'ts of writing proposal for grants. Yeah, this one I've just taken here and there lah. Basically, some would recommend you to refer for journal, just for the template to write a good proposal. Meaning to say that how to start, how to construct your language, how to end with writing your research. Sometimes maybe your supervisor also will tell, very easy to write paper because you just use a paper as a template, put in your data, just improvise a bit. So the language part of it can be resorted easily as compared to you writing yourself and maybe having somebody to proofread and all that. Okay. Find experienced mentor to support, guide you in your proposal writing. So if you have somebody, your supervisor, who has written grants and all that, they are the one that you want to add in your proposal. If they have retired, also go and find them, see whether your proposal is good, see they can guide you or not, and so on. Because these are all experienced professor, but just that they have retired, but they are still fully functional. Okay. Add experienced researcher goes back to number 2 which is in a professor, associate professor, doctor level their repo the repo, if you have them in, you can get the grant. And also like part of the time that early of my days when I apply for grant, early days time when you apply for grant and then now when you read back the grant, sometimes you feel that you could improve a little bit from the grant, but you got the grant. So then you will know that the reason why you get the grant is maybe because the panel of your co-researchers are actually strong. So they actually look at that. Segan, they sometimes segan mau reject lah. Segan nak reject ni sebab Prof ada dalam ni lah. So segan. Doesn't matter lah, they segan for you grant lah. Okay. Proper risk assessment and contingency plan. Look back at all the risk and also prepare contingency plan. Look at the level of your risk. Is it low, high, or medium? And then your entire project, is it, if it's low, high, and so on, what's the overall risk? Definitely, the priority of grants actually is given to those with industry collaboration. So if you have industry collaboration, the marks is given there, and strengthen your project lah. Okay. The don'ts, write proposal that doesn't match the grant philosophy. Yeah, basically as simple as it's a fundamental grant, but you're doing it like an apply. The overall thing, even though the title looks fundamental, but it is actually an applied grant. Overpromise, yeah, like I said, don't overpromise. Inconsistent in budget compared to proposed methodology. Methodology, you say you need few materials, but in your budget, you never put anything there. Even in your rental also, you never put. So where are you going to get this material from? Okay. If you say that this material I'm going to get from the university, then under the section where you need to declare your equipments, there will be a section where you need to put in your equipments, before you go to budget. That one you need to put in what are the materials available in the institution. So normally I tell lecturers that if you're not under any other consumable one, you tell them you have a laptop lah, that's all only. You have a laptop and you are doing your research based on this kind of simulation using this slow laptop. So maybe part of it is that you need a tower, you need a high-end PC, which actually will contribute to your fundamental research. So that one can. All right. Then this one is for those who already obtained lah. Okay, laporan akhir. Laporan akhir is that whoever obtained the grant, you need to make sure that you manage your grant as what do you call this, as professional as possible lah. Because I would say that normally in 2 years, KPT normally comes and visit institution and audit existing grant holders to see how they manage their government grant. But for us, not even for us, for the whole Malaysia, so due to MCO and all that, Mohi was slow in doing this lah. In fact, they didn't want to go around and do this. So until now, audit wasn't taken place lah from the start that we have grant. But that being said, moving forward also when the most of it becomes face to face and meetings starts to happen, and even I also need to travel to KPT to listen to their briefings and all that, then they will start doing audit. Okay, so we need to make sure that our management of our grant, the amount that we put in, everything is in proper folder, proper data, proper Excel sheet, evidence, the quotations, the EPRN number, your invoice, everything. The main PI needs to keep it into their folder, because finally you will submit a report of your result as well as all these check and balance of your grant lah. Okay, so this is very, very important. Okay. All right, then I have myself a grant checklist. So this is a checklist that you need to have. PI and co to update their profile in MyGrant. PI qualification, Lampiran A, see whether you qualify from the university that has been stated in Lampiran A. Contact your co-researchers for their permission, and then tell them to update their profile if they want you to add their name in the proposal, or if you want to add their name in your proposal. Third, Malaysian Code of Responsibility Conduct in Research. This is inside the folder that I given you all, the Google Drive link. You can read on this and start to write to relate to this also. Number 4, all relevant quotation to justify the budget applied. Number 5, list of the journals that you want to send. Number 6, do your land search, the document that I've given you all. Number 7, industrial partner. Number 8, do your risk assessment. Number 9, budget, proper budget. And number 10, this is what I always ask you all, internal, but we are taking it external. Those of you all who have given me your internal professors and examiners, they are actually treated those of you all, sorry, those of you all have given me external panel. They are named from different university. They are actually treated as internal panel because they are doing internally review for us. Once they have done, I give it to you all, you have correct, and then go back to them and they approve, they recommend. RMC sends to KPT. From KPT level only, they'll have external. This one KPT will do themselves. They don't ask researcher to do for them. They'll have a session, maybe online or anything. They have all the professors from public university, private, experts from the area of research in the SDG, MySTIE and all that will be there. And they will take like maybe 2 or 3 days in the resort. They will review all this. Yes, definitely it'll be in a resort where, you need to make sure they are properly treated lah, as a reviewer. Okay, so that's it. This one is very famous. Like in every guideline, you'll see KPT will have this. KPT berhak menolak kesemua all application dari institusi tersebut sekiranya proses penilaian di institusi tidak mematuhi prosedur dan garis panduan yang telah ditetapkan. Meaning to say, here, right, lecturer also cannot push for RMC to just give the grant, because if you do not comply and we send and they found out that your grant does not comply or do not comply, they can reject the whole grant that the institution can give. Meaning to say, imagine if you have 10 and all 10, from the 10, 9 nice, 1 not nice, and satu lah. They call it setitik nila sebelanga susu hancur. That kind of terminology lah. Okay, so don't be that setitik nila lah. Okay, so yes, don't be the black sheep of that whole thing lah. So we need to make sure the process is done. Help us help you also lah. Okay, and then finally, my advice to y'all, we are ending now. For those of y'all who applied and didn't get your grant, okay, I will always advise, okay, the more you try, the more you fail, the more you fail, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get lah. Okay, so that's about it. So these are all my references. You after finish this training, the recording will be available for you all. If you cannot wait for this recording, in the Google Drive also, there is even an elaborative 1-day kind of a training that I did, which is actually capturing the whole thing again, updating here and there based on the new guidelines and so on. Okay, so with that, I would like to thank the participant for, hope you guys are with me, hearing me throughout this 3 to 4 hours, I think, explaining to you all about FRGS grant. So before we go, I want to ask, is there any questions or not about FRGS or anything else? I'm opening questions now. No questions for now. Okay, how about the rest of the candidates? Participants or the candidate? Of course, if you have anything personally, you can always email PGRC, email me for improvement of your future grant. So you can start doing now. For those of you all who already sent, I would need the names of your examiners for your grant. Please provide to me. Weekend also no problem. You can text me and all that. I will always add them in my grant lah. Okay, so that's all from my side. Anything or not? Okay, so if there's no question, thank you very much. I will see you all around. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Yep, welcome. Bye-bye.